night. It's crazy because like I used to look up like like procrastination stuff, and it's crazy. But like when I tell y'all I was helpless to it, I
Yeah.
was literally helpless.
Yeah.
Unless there was the pressure of if you don't do this right now, you're gonna get a 0 and fail. That was the only pressure that could get me to do stuff. And like my whole life, I just thought like I don't know, like
Yeah, I'm just a
like,
procrastinator.
I can't work. Yeah, yeah.
That's
And
so
it's
I have an
crazy.
assignment due Sunday that requires me to, have like sources and everything on it. I still ain't started yet.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
dude.
I still ain't started yet. I know I'm gonna be starting it on Friday, and by Sunday it's gonna be complete. Like an hour into the day, I'm gonna complete it. But it's like I still haven't started it yet. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm playing The Sims, or like
Wait, you don't play
I'm
The
doing something
Sims?
else. Yeah.
You know The Sims
Like-
is electronic Barbie, bro. That's what that
Yeah,
is. That's
it
computer Barbie.
It's computer Barbie. Yeah. Well, my lady plays The Sims. She has a whole family and she has a whole house design. I'm like, listen, baby, you need to be an interior designer because
Yeah.
the way you design these people's house or these virtual folks' house is like it's amazing. you know.
Yeah.
Baby
But
on
me,
it.
I just play The Sims to like kind of kill time. You know what I mean? I have a dude who's a basketball player with dreads down to here and stuff like that, and I just use it to kill time. You know?
I feel
It
you.
is electronic Barbie though. It is.
It is. It is.
Let your imagination run wild.
It finally clicked because I was like, why do people? I didn't understand why anyone would ever even play that. Like, it just for me, it was just not my kind of game. But I've played like competitive games and fighting games and all that kind of stuff. So for me, the idea of like, it wasn't a game to me. But then one day someone said that I read that somewhere, and I was like, oh no, this makes every sense in the world. This is exactly what it is, and I can see why that would be appealing to some people.
Yeah, it lets your imagination run wild. It did do it, and all the mods that they got right now, they have a lot of mods in the game. Right now, they have a mod for you could be a rapper. So I've seen like 21 Savage in the game before. It's crazy. You know what I mean? They have very spicy mods. You know what I mean? I'm talking about when they do woohoo. That's what they call sex in the game. They call it woohoo. Yeah, I mean, you see everything. See everything. They get naked and everything. So like, yeah, people let their imaginations run wild on Sims. Yeah, I mean, it is like you say, electronic Barbie is like your imagination runs wild, so you get stuck in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the only competitive game I've ever been good at was Mario Kart. Everything else, bro, I suck. I suck.
We talking about 64?
Yeah, 64. I was good at 64.
Don't say it.
I hate to tell y'all.
Don't say
I
it.
watch y'all up, now.
Please don't say it, bro. Come on, don't do that.
I
Don't
hate
do
to tell
that.
y'all, bro.
No, I knew someone was gonna say it and hurt my feelings. Oh, no, I'm nice. I'm nice. I'm nice.
We run a battle, bro. Battle on block for it, bro. Come holler at your boy, bro.
Man. But yeah, so that's one of those games. But so like it's like chance. It's like there's a lot of chances because of the rubber bands and stuff like that in the game. Yeah. Well, I was playing a game. There's a small little tournament at Twin Galaxy Studios, and as I was playing the game, it got to a point where there was this guy who was like a competitive player of the game, and I was like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm good enough, I'm gonna keep up, plus the chance, and so we had to do like 8 races, like it was me, him, and then 2 other people, and consistently he got first literally every race, and I got second literally every race, and the other 2 niggas whatever, and I realized, despite like lightnings and all the rubber bands and all the things that are used to like make it to where you're supposed to go somewhat even, it didn't matter. It still actually skill was overcoming them despite the chance.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I was
he was
this
cooking.
is crazy. Yeah. That's when I realized, I guess maybe this game isn't all chance, because in my brain it was always like, no, chance is gonna have a huge deal, but it's not. It does some, but you know what I mean. Pons, how you doing, bro?
What's going on, Mr. Fanatiq?
So sorry for the miscommunication. That was on me, bro.
It's okay.
But we're here.
No, it's no worries. Literally, the name of the group was 1120. So.
Yeah. But we in there.
Gotcha.
But
you want to discuss Trump's statements, right? My bad. Go ahead.
Pons is gonna go kick it off. You know what it's about, right? You got everything.
Let's see here.
Oh, I don't know if I ever sent it to you. Did I not? This is This is the 0 panel, right? This is panel 0, the pilot Episode 1 is going to be on point. I promise you. It's going to be everything is going to be way smoother. I'm not going to wait till the last minute. I'm terrible at planning. I ain't going to lie. And I've been dealing with nonsense, like every day. Every day is a bunch of nonsense. So I've been very hyper busy and hyper focused on this thing. But as soon as I get that taken care of, then I can relax and actually be more present and stuff. But right now, bro, my brain is just on that 24 hours, just stuff that I got going on. So with that being said, yeah, this is episode 0. I'm streaming. I'm live. Pods. We're supposed to be talking about Kamala Harris's Blackness, and not just Trump's comments, but also the narrative that was like online. Like, you know, FBA folks were going ham about she's not black, which opens up a conversation, because even with recently, if you guys saw on Fresh and Fit, there was that woman who got into that fight, you know, in the elevator with them 2 women, and all that stuff after like getting into like a, you know, verbal confrontation with Myron and being kicked off the show. And afterwards, so then she was like, yeah, you know, and he called her a hard R, and there was just all this kind of stuff. And then the online narrative started talking about her blackness. I think she's not a descendant of American slavery, but either way, she, you know, so then that became the conversation again. Like, is she black, et cetera, et cetera. And then of course, then people started like digging into her timeline on let me hear like her previous posts. She said a bunch of anti-black stuff about how she would never want to date black men. It was a bunch of nonsense. I can find it for y'all really quick. But then that brings to me the conversation about, like, you know, blackness in general, because the online conversation is weird to me, about what is black. I understand like lineage and delineation, but this they're not black thing is just blowing my mind, and in my opinion, like, retarded.
Mm-hmm.
So conversation needs to happen.
All right. Okay. Well, so just laying down some really quick, not really ground rules. We don't really feel the need for a moderator. We're all adults. We're all responsible. We're not going to sit here and yell over each other. Just let people finish. And if everybody wants to talk at once, I'll probably slow it down a bit, and we can go like hand raise and kind of just like go one at a time, just so everybody gets a chance to talk. But we're just doing like whatever's necessary to have the good conversation. Doesn't have to be like a specific rule or, you know, so just chime in if you think that's necessary. But going right into that first topic, we'll kind of go around, give yourself a brief introduction, and then give your opinions on what Fanatiq was just talking about, the perception of Kamala's blackness, and, you know, just kind of how you perceive that whole situation. Fanatiq, if you'd like to, you can take the time and do an introduction and stuff.
Well, I hate going first. I ain't gonna lie, cause
yeah,
but yeah, I'm too opinionated. Somebody else go first. Somebody else, please.
Okay, no worries.
I don't mind kicking it off. So what's up? I'm GSU Gambit. I am a political commentator, but software engineer by night or by day, I guess. Yeah, so happy to be here. Happy to have this conversation. It's gonna be dope. For me, so I wasn't as aware of, is it Kamala or Kamala?
I don't care. We can say either, and I'm sick of people making that into a big deal, like as if that's like some huge thing that we got to talk about. I can't bro. There was no substance in this conversation. But go ahead. I'm sorry. It's a trigger.
It bothers me too when people do that. I'm just gonna say whichever one comes to mind. But I think the one that I say is wrong, and just to be aware. But so I think it's Kamala, because I would say Kamala naturally. It feels like so. Kamala, I wasn't hyper aware of her. I did always have the idea that she could be black. I did see things about her being Indian more, it seems like, before I really got to know her. I was actually on a panel, and I was like, well, she was always an Indian woman to me. And then like somebody provided me links, and they showed me like, yeah, she was in the HBCU, and this is what she said her background was, and like these are statements that she made before she became popular. So I think there's a lot of credence to the argument that she's considered herself black for the majority of her life in some ways. So I kind of just had to accept it, because I wasn't really aware and knowledgeable of her her background, and they provided me some stuff that seemed to be substantial. So since that conversation, I've kind of considered her Black. Now there is some wild nonsense in the conspiratorial Candace Owens space of the internet, where she's looked into the person that she's called her grandmother, and she's like, this person might have really been the help, and they weren't actually her family. And apparently, there's somebody that she called her family before, maybe in a book, and that person was found out to not actually be like a part of her family, but a family friend. So it kind of engenders like maybe she's been lying about this, and like maybe her dad doesn't consider himself Black. So I know that those topics exist in the ether. I don't put any stock in them until somebody just gives me something and says, "Hey, like, look, here's the evidence. You have to accept it, right?" But yeah. So my opinion on this, she's definitely Black, but it's based off of just stuff that I've seen and statements that I've seen. But yeah, so I consider her Black since that conversation. And yeah, I think some of the commentary around it, she's Black. If she has repeatedly said she's Black throughout her career, I think challenging her Blackness is a bit wild, unless there's some kind of substantial claim to say the least. So I think the stuff that Donald Trump has did, it's possible that he was just like me and like he was ignorant of her. I don't give him the same credence because he's in this political arena, and I'm pretty sure he had access to statements that she made, just like I was made aware of on a panel. So yeah, I think it's kind of crazy that people have challenged her Blackness. But if some of the things that Candace Owens said comes out to be substantiated, I don't know what we're gonna do there. It's a much different conversation.
I like it.
Yeah, I could agree with that. My name is Volsi. I go by Volsi Thoughts on YouTube and on TikTok. I do religious and political debates as well. For me, like, it was kind of the reverse of GSU. I heard that she was Black first before I heard she was part Indian. I didn't hear she was Indian until someone pointed out that her dad actually married an Indian woman, because to me she came off Black presenting, just one of those good hair, what we call good hair type of Black people. So I think, okay, she's probably mixed with something, probably a grandmother or whatever. You know what I mean? So I thought she was Black presenting. Now, the name Kamala or Kamala, I'm not sure how you say it. No offense to anybody, but Kamala, her that name always seemed as like, is that a Black sounding name or something else? Yeah, I mean, so that I was always a little confused there. But other than that, she always came off as Black presenting. I didn't find that she was part Indian until later. And when her Blackness got called into question, it was always strange to me, because like her Blackness in the areas that I've seen, as Fanatiq said earlier, was more in the FBA arena, saying that if you're not from a descendant of the United States chattel slavery, then you shouldn't be considered part of that Black realm. You should be considered melanated. But I always thought that was just like an online thing. Yeah, I mean, I just started seeing it offline, which kind of surprised me when I started seeing it offline. And I'm like, are y'all really having that type of conversation? Yeah, I mean, because I thought this was in the realm of online spaces. Now, offline, it wasn't people really going hard on it, but it was people actually questioning, what do we consider Black now? You see what I'm saying? Like, with me, I've always felt that Black was, people who descended from the, sub-Saharan Africa. It was always, that sphere was always considered Black, because that's what it was considered during colonialism, and even prior to that. That's what Black was considered. A Black person was considered that. You know what I mean? Now, I get that, race is a kind of a social construct, you know what I mean? But even if it is a social construct, there is like genetic and cultural things that come into play. You feel me? Like at the end of the day, yeah, we all bleed red. I'm not gonna deny that. Yeah, you feel me? But there are some genetic and cultural things that come into play with this. So it's not just it's not just skin deep. You know what I mean? There are other things. So questioning her Blackness, just as GSU said, it always came off as wild to me. And as far as Candace Owens goes, like I think she really Candace and Donald Trump really emboldened conservative white people, who are either diet racist or completely full on racist, to completely deny her Blackness, because they see not just Donald Trump saying it, but they see Candace Owens saying it. You know what I mean? Once it's said by a Black person, then it's validated to everybody else. You see what I'm saying? And when I did host political debates, I've had at least several white people, besides conservative white people, I'll say, besides them saying that since I'm a Haitian, I eat cats. Besides them saying that, they would, yeah, it got wild. My streams got wild. They got really wild. Besides them saying that, they would deny that she's black, and they'll bring up the same thing. Oh, the person she says her uncle is a family friend, not her uncle. But it's like you typically ask any person who grew up, either middle class, not even just black folks. If you grew up like working class or middle class, and you ask them your mother's best friend's kids, who are they to you? Most of us are gonna say that's your cousin. Yeah, I mean, we always called our mothers and our father's best friends aunt or uncle. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's probably what the case was at this point. I was a family friend. Yeah, she's gonna call them uncle, and those kids are gonna be her cousins. I still got play cousins. Right. You know what I mean, so is like it, and it's not just a black thing. It's anyone who grew up working on middle class. We've all done that. So it's like that always seems so strange to me, and I had to point that out to these people. Like, listen, I had to ask them that same question. Your mother's best friend, her kids, what are they to you? And they would confirm, oh, those are my cousins. Like, duh, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's your uncle, that's your aunt. So it's like, it was really strange to me that they would always kind of bring that up and question her blackness. And I think it really emboldened a lot of bad actors and just straight up racist people who just, don't like black people. And yeah, I'll land there.
So I'm in agreement with both of what you guys said. I feel like it was an intentional strategy. I think there was almost no way for people to justify voting for Trump. There was going to be so many things that people were going to be able to use to attack him. And I think he knew that the online space, like Twitter and all that stuff, which is Elon Musk territory, he has access to that information. And he knew that by questioning her blackness and saying now she's saying she's black when she had been saying she was black forever, that was going to be a problem. Now, there's no doubt about it that there were plenty of times where they would refer to her as the Indian American. Like, I remember there was a point where Biden had made that statement. She's the first Indian American woman elected to da-da-da-da. Exactly. I remember that. So it was like, all right, I hear that. Then, of course, there was also the conversations about she was raised primarily by her Indian mother, so that was her culture, and like they were kind of like going into that. If you remember when she even first became vice president, she did an episode of some show with Mindy Kaling where they went there and they just talked about Indian heritage and like what her Indian life, whatever, and veganism and all these things that were like very Indian specific. And I felt like, okay, so she's clearly Indian as well. But then, people started questioning the blackness. And I feel like what's happening here is something that we've kind of spoken about in other places about like what happens to mixed people, where some people will reject a side of them just because they want to claim it. Like if they want to claim the one side, they'll reject the other side. Or if they want to if they don't like the person or don't approve the person, then they will like reject the part that identified with them and label them as the other side. So I, in my own personal experience, had cousins who were very extremely light-skinned, and we would really chastise them. It was disgusting. We were kids, but we would chastise them because of how light-skinned they were, and like tell them like, no, you're black, you can't be white, all those kinds of things. And getting older, I started realizing like how much we ostracized the white side of them. It's like, no, you have to deny that. One of the kids picked up his favorite Power Ranger was the Red Ranger. And I remember as a very little kid asking, who's your favorite Power Ranger? And his was the Red Ranger, which makes sense because the Red Ranger is the leader. You know what I mean? Like he was whatever. But for me, I'm dismissing it. Like, no, you can't like the Red Ranger. You got to like the Black Ranger. Like trying to force him into this blackness when it was like, I mean, he's a black person. Like, there's just no way around it. Even if he's like, again, super fair skin, dude has black features, black lips, black nose. He has black features, but he also happens to have red hair and very pale skin and freckles, and like gray eyes. So, like, from those things I've learned, I see that playing out with Kamala, where we're right now at a place where people Indian people kind of like in the polls, like some of their voting was affected by that. They felt like she was leaning into her blackness. It was actually like found in exit polls. So that was a thing. And then black people were like, nah, she's Indian. So I think it's the mixed bag. Lastly, what I'll say is, a lot of people, someone even in the comments now said, Harris ain't black. It was on the YouTube. They said Harris ain't black. She's Jamaican. Which this is where that conversation goes. I've spoke a while now, so I'll let somebody else go. But yeah, I got some responses to that. How do y'all feel about that paradigm that she's not black, she's whatever, or like they would say, Volsi, you're not black, you're Haitian. Like what about that conversation? I also thought that was an online only thing. I haven't yet to encounter that in real life, but I know it's like a conversation now online, which is crazy. I thought it was crazy from the beginning.
I don't think most people have this conversation. I agree, and I think that it's tough because obviously, being a white person, I don't really look much into the dynamics of like having the black experience from like the inward side of it. Having the family, the social structure, all of that stuff. But one thing that I do look at and that I take the thing that I think I care the most about when I'm asking is someone black, like for me personally, is whether or not they're having a black experience. And for me, the way that I can see that is you're living a life where people are perceiving you as black. That to me is the most tangible thing that I can, and again, it's going to be different for everybody, but for me personally, that's the most tangible thing that I can hold on to is, okay, this person's having an experience where when they walk on the street, people are looking at them and saying that's a black person. And I think in that regard, obviously this is my opinion, but I would say that Kamala is a person that at a glance, most people would probably perceive as black and not question further, at least in America. That might be different for black people. So when it comes to that aspect of people questioning her blackness and such, I think there's kind of two arguments sort of there. The first one is like, is she having a black experience? And then that second one is kind of, is she ethnically black? Is she having that inward black experience where we're talking about the family and the social structure and all that other stuff? And I think both of those are very interesting. But I think that questioning it is, like I've heard a few people say here, it's a little strange because I don't understand what the implication is. Are we trying to say that she doesn't have a black experience? Are we trying to say that she's not ethnically black enough to understand black issues? Or are we saying the third thing, which is obviously what they're saying, which is that she's not black. She knows she's not black, but she's kind of pretending to be black to get those brownie points. I just think those are very strange questions to be asking, but not unlike the modern questions that are asked today, unfortunately.
Brownie points and N-word were both amazing words there.
Yeah, N-word was amazing. Yeah,
it was. He was dropping gems and didn't even notice.
What was happening?
Dropping gems and didn't even notice.
Yeah, I think a lot of the conversation does stem for her like biraciality. And I was actually listening to and this is when all of the Drake stuff was happening, when the GOAT was debating this. We don't have to go into that. But no, I'm joking. I was just playing.
No way.
But there was a conversation that Umar Johnson was having that I think was resonating with a lot of people, and I think I disagree with it. But the conversation was over if someone is biracial, their commitment to blackness is important, and that kind of sort of teeters somewhat in whether or not he like considers them black, even though he says any union of a person and a black person is a black person. There was like some ambiguity in one of the statements that he made, and I do think a lot of people latched onto that. So what I think when I actually talk to people who say Kamala's not black, what I get out of them is they don't think she's committed to black people, which I'm like, well, you can be black and not be committed to black people. Like, look at Candace, right? So like I think that's a distinction that people don't want to make. They don't want to call her black because they don't think she's committed to us.
They would say Candace
I think that's a slap. I don't know in what the specific people I argue with. I don't think they would make that claim, but I think they would definitely throw that biracial because they also would say Drake is not black. So, but it's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I'm kind of sort of like, yo, if you have a black mother, grandmother, whatever, like you're black, like I accept you into blackness or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. For me, when like it's a yeah.
Well, you cut out a little bit.
Yeah, I did cut out a little bit. For me, it's one of those things where like, cause in the online conversation, like I said earlier, a lot of people consider the term black only for African Americans, like descendants of American slavery only, and everyone else is just their nationality, essentially. So like I understand that you have a racial background and you have an ethnic background. My racial background is I'm a black person, and my ethnic background is Haitian because that's where my parents are from. That's my ethnic background, and I understand that. And I think it's being conflated because in America, the ethnic background would then just be black. You know what I mean? But then I would point out something else. If an African American were to move to like France or something like that, your ethnic background would then be American. It wouldn't be black because blackness is considered something else over there. Like it's considered more towards the Africans. So it's one of those things that I've said and pointed out, and I've always said that I understand the entire like ethnic argument. The ethnic argument is that in America the ethnicity is black and the culture is black, and anything outside of that, like you're basically an extra, like you're a plus one in within the black sphere, and I understand that. But still, in as far as I can only speak to the history of what I understood from my people, from Haitians, blackness was always a thing with us. Yeah, I mean, all the way back to the first Constitution, all the way back to the Revolution, blackness was always a thing. It was even in, I think, one of Toussaint's Dessalines, it was even in their last speech, one of their last speeches where my mother was used to recite it in French, and one of the last words were we're fighting for a nation of black people. That's literally what they said. You know what I mean? So when I hear, you're not black, you're Haitian, or I heard another person say, I'm not black, I'm Haitian, I'm like, do you understand the history of what our people did? They literally said that they were black people. So excluding that means that you're denying our entire history, or you're denying yourself, because within Haitian culture, blackness and being Haitian is one and the same, unless you're a white Haitian. Then they will hyphenate you. Oh, you're a white Haitian. Yeah, I mean, but to me, I'm just Haitian because blackness and Haitian is the same thing. It's synonymous. You see what I'm saying? So it's like that conversation has always been strange to me. And when I started hearing it offline, I would point these things out to people, and I guess they will understand. Like I said, offline is not as contentious, not as toxic as we will see it online. Offline is more of a question, more of how do we determine this now, more of curiosity, more of trying to gain the knowledge. Online, especially in Twitter Spaces, Fanatiq knows, especially in Twitter, it's bad. It's just toxic, And I try to have intelligent conversations, but I think in a lot of this, people have been either hyped up, brainwashed, or just hurt by hearing or seeing people who look like them demean them and exclude themselves from blackness. You know what I mean? And that's why I kind of try to give grace whenever I talk to these people until they try my face. And once you start trying me, once you start insulting me, then gloves is off. I'm not messing with you. But I try to give grace to people who seem upset or even saddened that that's happening, and try to have a good conversation with them. And I try to point out that there is ethnicity and then there is race, but for myself, my blackness has always been synonymous with my ethnicity as a Haitian. It's always been the same. So I've never seen the difference. And I know for a lot of people back in Haiti, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? Like my grandmother became a citizen in 2008, literally just to vote for Obama. And when I asked her, how come you decided to become a citizen now? And she said, black pour black. Black pour black means black for black. that's what she understood. You know what I mean? So it's like a black person is trying to lead the country. Boom, I'm voting for that. That's it. She hasn't voted since. She hasn't voted since.
All right.
But she always said black for black. You know what I mean? But it's always been one of those things. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go ahead and land here, but it's always been like a strange, kind of weird conversation to me, wild conversation, because I always thought that we were getting to the point of, especially within the diaspora, of us finally working together. You know what I mean? We've been watching TVs from shows from the UK, internet content from the UK, and we see that they're not that different from us. They talk about the same things that we talk about. There's gender wars happening over there too. You know what I mean? They talk about blackness the same way we do. Like, yeah, I know it's crazy. I know, Fanatiq, it's crazy. But like, they talk about the same thing we do. And then Afro beats was blowing up. We was all talking about, having a good time, going to Africa and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, we don't get along anymore. We all hate each other. I think it's COINTELPRO, but that's just my conspiracy theory. I'll go ahead and let Fanatiq speak.
All right. So look, there's a few things. For one, I think I want to frame it so that we all can make sure that we're having the appropriate conversation so that so everyone else can keep up, right? So blackness in the United States, especially for like descendants of slavery, has always been two things. It's always been a race, and it's always been an ethnicity. Those are two distinct things. Race and ethnicity are not the same thing. You can have two different ethnicities living in the same country, right? You can have, like, for example, in Nigeria, I think you have like the Yoruba people, and then you have the Igbo people, right? And they're both Nigerians, but they're two different cultures. So they're two different ethnicities, right? So you can have within the same continent, within the same country, you can have different ethnicities. For blackness, our ethnicity, black is a race, because obviously, within the racial paradigm, there was white people, black people, and then pretty much everybody else qualified as white if you go historically. But anyway, that blackness was like a very specific delineation of a racial category that also applied towards Jamaican and so on and so forth, right? From the race thing. But from an ethnical standpoint, when you start talking about blackness, I understand why people make the statement that so-and-so is not black, because they're not black American. They're referring specifically to that ethnicity, not the race. And I think that overlap is why there's always confusion, because I'm willing to recognize Kamala as racially black, but she's not going to be ethnically black American. And there are some situations where that distinction matters, and some distinctions where it doesn't. If a police officer is pulling us over, he's not waiting to figure out what my last name is, or let me hear your accent. They're not doing that, right? They're black is black in the initial encounter and things like that. But when it comes to job applications, there is going to be consideration, and there are actually studies that prove that there is like bias towards non-ethnic, non-ADOS, non-FBA, whatever phrase you want to use, non-people of the lineage. There's bias towards other black people who are not part of that lineage. So there are some differences. I remember in the past when I was on the Pan-Africanist movement, and we were arguing on somebody else's panel about should we be Pan-African, and I was saying, well, yeah, I think it would be beneficial if we have a circulating dollar within black folks the same way Hispanics do it. When you look at like Hispanic cultures, Salvadorians have not been big fans of Mexicans ever, right? Like they're not the same, and Hondurans and Guatemalans and Nicaraguans and all these people, these are all distinct groups. When they come to the United States, you're just Latin, or to the even more racist folk, you're just Mexican. Right? So
yeah.
Same thing happens with Asians, where it's like, we call you an Asian American, right? A Korean and a Japanese people, they're not at all the same thing, and neither is a Chinese. Like, these are very, very distinct cultures. You look at an Indonesian and then compare them to a Chinese, we're not even talking about the same. Like, they're so wildly different. But when you come to the States, you can be a Vietnamese, you're Asian. That's it. And so now they have this collective. Now they do have their enclaves of like Little Korea and Little Japan, and Little Tokyo as they call it, Chinatown. Mm-hmm. They have those things, but you'll find even within those things, within Chinatown, you'll find a lot of Koreans still there. You'll find a little Asian, a little just different Asian groups. Vietnamese people are going to be living within one of those enclaves. You don't have a little Vietnam, right? So the fact of the matter is that dollar circulation, that collective, does provide some sort of influence, political power, etc. So I like the idea of that. But once I learned of the antagonism towards Black Americans that's found in a lot of immigrant Black groups, then it started making me recognize, oh, this is why it doesn't work. So I'm holding that ill because Gambit was 100% staunchly opposed to it. I don't know if you remember these conversations.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, but he was staunchly opposed to it, and I was 100% like, it would be beneficial if we could all get on the same page. I still believe that it would be if we could all get past that bias and stuff, but the fact of the matter is, some of that bias is really, really there within those communities, so then it's like, okay, the Pan-African thing stops working when you have a common anti-blackness, talking about Black Americanists, right, within those groups, then it's like, I can see now why there's this distinction, why it has to remain.
Gotcha. No, I really feel that when I was younger, I would hear that from older Haitians as well, of, you know, American, you know, the Americans are this, that, and the third, and then I would go to school and I'm like, there's nothing like what where are they getting this from? Like I would really question, like, where are you getting this from? And now I understand where they got it from. It's like, you know, whatever America exports. You know, we still get a lot of American TV in Haiti, so it's like, you know, that's what is exported over there. And then like I would have to speak with them and be like, no, it's not that way. I said, just give it a few. You know what I mean? Give it a few years and you're gonna learn. And my dad, at least, he learned very quickly when he got here what he was watching on TV wasn't what it was. It wasn't true. You know what I mean? Because the first people who helped them were African Americans. That's the first people who he ran into. You know what I mean? Like when my mother, she even told me the story of how she had to rush over here because, you know, during that time it was a bad time in Haiti, so she had to come over here through not well means. But when she got over here, the person who took her in, who hit her, found other Haitian people to help her out, was an African American woman. So when you get here, they learned. My parents were lucky enough to learn very, very quickly, but a lot of people didn't, because there's a lot more people there to help you, so you don't have to have that help from them. Yeah, I mean, so like I think that disconnect of seeing what's on TV, seeing what's exported through American media, then getting here, and then you're already within an enclave of your ethnicity. You may not interact with African Americans like that, so you don't know that it's not an excuse now. I'm not trying to excuse them, but like they really don't know that what their perception is incorrect until they live here for a while, start interacting with African Americans, and then see, oh, this is what it is in America. You know what I mean? So me, on my part, whenever I know that a person is new here, like a Haitian is new here, I always let them know that, hey, what you saw on TV is not it. Like, these are gonna be your friends, not, you know, the other folks. Like, you have to be careful. Like, these might be your friends first, and like, be careful out there, because like there's a system at play. So be careful of that system. You know what I mean? And don't think on TV like, you know, the white people are good and the black Americans are the lazy bad ones. You know what I mean? Anybody can be lazy or bad. That's not true. Just put into your mind that, you know, what you saw on TV is not 100% the truth, and 90% of it is completely made up. So always judge people not by, you know, what you've seen on TV or their ethnic background. Judge them on how they treat you, you know. And they like, they have to learn that, unfortunately, because a lot of the media, that's what is exported. Now we have social media now. We have a lot of young people who know better. But yeah, back in the 90s, there was a lot of you know, cultural like ignorance happening, and unfortunately it's still happening because of all the fights that we see online. Now it's still happening. I think everybody's talking past each other, but I do agree that Pan-Africanism would work out, and I'm still, you know, one of those Pan-African people that wants to be Pan-African for the entire diaspora while respecting our distinctive cultures. But I do understand why it cannot work now, especially since we don't have a good idea of what makes someone African. You know what I mean? In my opinion, everyone who's sub-Saharan, I consider African, but even, you know, above the Sahara, even though they don't, but everyone sub-Saharan that we consider the typical African, I consider African. But I understand why it's not worldwide like that yet. And we need to have a real good conversation on what exactly it means, what exactly blackness means, and how exactly do we move this forward, and before we actually say everybody be Pan-African. So I understand that.
Yeah. I think I personally think that the way forward, the way to kind of start to create progress here and sort of bringing this back to the Kamala thing is that I think it's very, very easy, especially when times are hard. It's very easy to divide our problems together, but often the better thing to do is instead count together your problems and find your commonalities. It's going to get you a lot farther to have that empathetic side. And for me personally, looking at the situation where I've talked to a few Black people, and usually a common thing that I hear when I say, well, why do you care so much about the Black identity, is because there's still things to be done. There's still things that were done that need to be taken care of and need to be paid back or reparated or whatever you think needs to be done. But the reality is, if we just dissolve what is Black people, then all of those things just fall aside, and now they just all happen to people. And that's not really a fair way to look at a lot of the things that have been done over the last 40 years, especially not in America, 40, 60, 200, whatever you want to look at. I think that going forward, is Kamala Black? I think a more important question is Kamala able to understand these Black experiences? Is she able to associate with them? And more importantly, is she able to provide help, even if she isn't able to understand them? And I think it's such a shame for people who are in the middle and they're thinking, well, I don't want to vote for Kamala because she's giving herself this title and she might not be that thing. And that's very fair. But what's sad for me is that what ends up happening is you don't vote for that person. And what ends up coming instead is something far more dangerous and something far more on the attack for what the identity of a Black person might be than Kamala ever was, in my opinion, of course.
Yeah, I think the Pan-Africanist conversation has always been interesting. I do remember that exact panel, and I've always been against it because like people our age, like our age group, whenever I talk to them, so I don't know how young you all were when you had your first white friend, but you get a white friend and you learn from them that the elders in their community don't like Black people. The reason why I was like anti Pan African was every time I met other people that were Black that weren't ADOS or FBA or whatever word we want to use, I got that same vibe that like your parents don't like me. And that's why I never was able to just like connect really with Pan Africanism. I do think it would be beautiful if there was actually a coalition of Black people all around, like coming together and trying to make the Black experience for all of us better. So I love it in idea. I think in implementation, there's a lot of anti-Blackness or anti-ADOS that we need to get through. But yeah, that's all I'll say on that. But when it comes to Kamala, so I don't know how you all feel about this, but there's also like a conversation around representation in this. One thing that I really don't like, even though I agree that we're all Black, I don't think experiences, I don't think we get the same opportunities sometimes. And when I see things that are happening in like the movie industry or other places, like when I watch Black Panther, I don't know if I feel represented. And what I noticed is a lot of culture, like there was a new Netflix, and they were like, "Yo, there's this new Netflix thing." And I was like, "Oh my god, it's gonna be Black people. It's gonna be great." And in some ways, I felt, "Oh, it's gonna be FBA people," but it was like like in the UK, and it was like Africans. So I do sometimes not feel represented somewhat when I see other parts of Blackness, even though I consider them Black. And I've noticed that a lot of the opportunity seems to not be given to FBA. So I think there is a specific disdain that industry holders have towards our identity where they'll represent Blackness in a positive light when it comes to other facets of Blackness and not do the same thing for FBA, which has always been kind of weird to me because a part of it is I understand the controllers of these markets aren't the non FBA Black people, right? It's usually white people or Jewish or some other race. So yeah, this always been a little bit concerning me. And like, just to finish, we were talking about, I can't remember if this was on Twitch or this was like a personal friend group, but we were talking about like America's first Black president. And I was like, Obama's definitely like that. Like, what are we talking about? And they were like, yeah, but do you think we could ever have an FBA president? And I sometimes feel like we can't. And it's like you have Kamala here and you have Brock here, who I do feel represented by them for sure. But I don't know if we actually elect FBA person to these type of offices. So I think that nuance is incredible. But yeah.
Yeah, listen. So here's where I think, and I think this is actually accurate. Very, very frequently, when you find anti-blackness with black faces, they're not people of our lineage. Like, for example, Candace Owens, she's not of the lineage, right? And she's one of the most vocal anti-black people that you can come across, from her nonsense with George Floyd to all the other nonsense, right? Then you have, obviously, like Byron Donalds. When he talked about reparations, he very clearly said, "Oh, I would never even qualify for reparations because I'm an immigrant." Da, da, da. You know, so it's like, okay, so then that made sense. When you start looking at, I don't know, just Gothics. It's another, like, a YouTube, like, content creator. I feel like she's been very anti-black in a lot of her positions and always promoting about victim mentality. That she's also not of our lineage. Of course, you have like your Jesse Lee Petersons, who's of our lineage and just securing a bag and lying, right? So it's not. I'm never going to make the statement that only people of our lineage, like, or all hateful people, and self-hating people are not of our lineage. But it is a very common thing. And that same thing you're talking about, where it's like, you meet people and you find out, oh, their parents really don't like us. I remember I went to one of my friend's house. He's an Asian person, Vietnamese, and we got to his house. He was going through some stuff. Either way, I'm helping him out. So I get there to his house, and his dad, he introduces his dad to me. Introduced me to his dad. I've known him forever through gaming and stuff. But anyway, so then I go in there and I'm playing the game, whatever. And his dad pulls him to the side and is like, "Hey, make sure he doesn't cause any trouble." And so then he came to me. He was like, "Wow, I didn't know my dad was. I guess he's kind of racist." And he's like, and I'm like, "Well, what happened?" And he's like, "He told me to make sure that you didn't cause any trouble." And I was like, "I'm the least trouble causing nigga you can meet." You know what I mean? I'm a very unassuming dude. I'm not a threatening guy. Like, there's just but that's where his brain went, specifically because of my race. And so I know that anti-blackness is ever present within Asian communities and stuff. So it's just, when you start seeing that, yeah, you do start to encounter that. So that's where I feel like, yeah, there's this problem. Now, the anti-blackness with Kamala, would she be a good representation for us? I didn't feel particularly represented by her. And the reason why I didn't feel personally represented, and I understand people can feel for different reasons. The reason why I didn't feel particularly represented by her is because I don't think she had a reasonable black agenda. I don't think that she truly had a plan for how to fix our issues. I think she had the standard Democrat, I'm just going to do like a rising tide through some low income program and hope that more black people capitalize when they won't, and it's not going to actually fix the problem. And she just wanted to do what the bare minimum that could look like it was black presenting, but not. And this was evident by the fact that when you looked at her plan, when she finally, because she realized she was not, black men weren't necessarily feeling her to the same degree, what we ended up seeing was she was like, "Oh, here's my black agenda." But the things that she talked about in her agenda were not for black folks. For instance, She was like, "Oh, crypto, we're going to make sure that black men can secure their money through crypto." And it's like, wait, black men are not even like positively disproportionately represented within crypto. Like, that's not a thing that we're like overwhelmingly part of. In fact, we're underrepresented within the crypto sphere. So that was like that's not for us. Oh, I'm gonna do something for business loans so that black men can do whatever. And it's like, I like the idea of business loans, but I know that the majority of those business loans aren't going to go to us, because unless you do something to offset some of the barriers that are going to be needed in order to get those business loans, credit scores, erasure of debt, things like that. If you don't do those things, then or the ability to like have some sort of money to be able to put up so that you can show that you can actually pay off this business loan, we're not going to qualify. So then the majority of them are going to not go to us. PPP loans, the majority of them went to white people. We got like less than 3% of the PPP loans, even though we're like 13% of the population. So all of the stuff that she was saying had no specific black agenda. It wasn't going to offset our problems. It was going to make it worse. And so to me, I don't feel represented by her. I feel like she has been somewhat anti-black in several ways. So for me, I did not feel particularly represented by her, and I wasn't a big fan of her. Again, I know how the threat that Donald Trump was, but I wasn't a fan of Kamala. I just wanted the conversation to be more substance about what were her policy ideas. Was she somebody that was actually going to be beneficial for us individually, as opposed to her race. I thought that was or her ethnicity. I thought that was the stupidest non sequitur.
Yeah, when it comes to like representation, really, I think I'm one of the people that just hangs on to any positive representation of Black people, because anytime in the media that Haitians are represented is usually negative. It's usually in the form of either voodoo, chaos is happening, or we're just some, you know, gangster savage that likes to cut up people. You know what I'm saying? So representation of Black people, period, is something I kind of hang on to, because my people are almost never represented positively. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just one of those things where like that's where I kind of get at with that. And when it comes to the disdain between or the animosity between like immigrant groups and Black Americans, a conversation that I've seen happening across the pond in the UK is that the same thing is happening between the Black people who came during the Windrush generation and the Black people who came after that. The Windrush generation was after World War II, when the UK went down to the Caribbean, to their old colonies, you know, especially Jamaica, Trinidad, or they went to like you know, Sierra Leone, places like that, and they bought those Black people. They sent ships down there, bought those Black people back to help rebuild the UK, because you know UK got bombed by Germany. The people who were part of the Windrush generation, this was, remember, during the 1940s and 50s when the UK was rebuilding. So the 1940s, 50s UK was essentially Jim Crow South. You know what I mean? It was basically that. So the Black people who went through that, namely Jamaicans, they grew up during that era. And now, you know, the new immigrants coming in, you know, around this time, around the 80s and the 90s, in the 2000s, are usually the Africans, you know, the Nigerian, Sierra Leone, places like that. They're coming in after, and this little this, not little, I'm not gonna say little, but the animosity situation that we're talking about, it's happening over there too with them, where they say, oh, the African parents will tell them, the Nigerian parents will tell them, don't hang out around with the Jamaicans. Yeah, you see what I mean? It's happening over there too. So that points out to me that it seems a lot more of a, just like how we said, an experience and a generational thing. The new Africans coming to the UK, they didn't experience what the Jamaicans did during the Windrush generation. They didn't experience that. So they're thinking that the UK is opportunity and the Jamaicans are just lazy. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of it has to do with experience, and once you hit the second or third generation, you may see the tone kind of change up. You know what I mean? But like, it was just always just, it kind of blew my mind that I'm seeing similar themes happening over there. Yeah, you know what I mean, if we're gonna bring it back to Kamala as far as what she represented, I did see her the policies that she came up with. Now the crypto thing, I thought was okay. That's pretty silly. That's pretty silly. But I did like the focus on like health with prostate cancer, because Black men are affected by that. So I did like that policy, and the business policy. Just like how Fanatiq pointed out, even though that can help a little bit, you have to address the systemic barriers. You know what I mean? So I would have loved to see more, even though I'm like, okay, this is an okay first step, but we need to address the school to prison pipeline, which she kind of contributed to. Not even kind of. Like, the Fanatiq could say more about that, you know, because he was in California. She contributed to. So we need to address the school to prison pipeline. We need to address economic barriers within the businesses, just like how he said. I've never seen a Democrat actually say abolish credit. Credit was invented in 1989. We really don't need it, yo. It was invented when I was 2 years old. Like, that's insane. We don't really need it, and we know that credit was a system implemented by like 1950 standards. We know credit is racist. Like, there's no doubt about it. We know credit is racist. So if we're gonna keep credit, we can at least reform it, reset it, update the algorithm to reflect current trends, because Black people for no reason are usually given low credit for like no reason at all. You see what I mean? Like, it happens. It's a thing that really actually happens. So we can actually reform the credit system, or if it's an entirely racist system, let's go ahead and abolish it. That needs to be addressed. And I don't think any Democrat has addressed that before. But I understand why people didn't feel represented by Kamala, because what she's presented, even though it could advantage us, it doesn't actually address the systemic barriers. It doesn't actually address things that we can go through. It doesn't actually address things that she contributed to. You know what I mean? Now, if in my opinion, if she had put something in there about we need to address the school to prison pipeline, and in my time as DA, I contributed to this problem, so now I want to fix it, I think she would have gotten way more respect and way more people to vote for her at that point. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what it is with Democrats, but they do not want to admit when they made a mistake in the past. Like, for some reason, for some odd reason, they do not want to admit it. Just admit it that you made a mistake, and this is what you're planning to move on from it. You know what I mean? Most people at that point will respect you. So like I said, like I do get why she didn't feel people didn't feel that she represented them. I do think some of her policies were good first steps. I did like the child tax credit and everything like that. Good first steps, but you need to address the systemic barriers. And they just tap dance around that, and it's tiring, and it's why we see people shifting right now. Like as a progressive, as a leftist person, I want to see them actually address systemic issues, and I'm always disappointed that they don't. I'm never surprised, but I'm always disappointed. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I'll say on the reparations conversation, I didn't comment on that. I do find that when I see Black people against reparations and I look into it, most of the time they're not FBA when I look into it. And that's another thing that like adds to the Pan-Africanism thing that like kind of sort of rubs me the wrong way. About the Kamala policies, like, yeah, the fact that she even presented, hey, I'm finally going to have an agenda for y'all, and it contained cryptocurrency, like that shows me her distance away from at least FBA, if not Blackness in total, at least definitely FBA. So that was like wild, and I think it might have been first in the list. I can't remember, but it was like I was like, yo, what team assembled that this is going to be your attack for people saying that you're not for Black people? So that was crazy. Dang, what was I about to go with this? Damn, there was a point I wanted to make. No, I think that one thing I've noticed is what you were just pointing out is that like there doesn't seem to be like a will to address deep systemic problems. And this is again where I think wanting FBA or ADOS or whatever word representation, people would push for those policies. I was going to ask y'all, that was a clip, and I have heard that this is out of context, and maybe y'all are more aware of this than I am, so I just want to understand the background. There was a clip there where she said, I'll definitely never do something specifically or only to affect Black people. And I haven't looked into that more because I was like, well, I felt she would say a statement like this. Is that clip out of context, or was she really saying, I'm not going to do something specifically for Black people? It has to be like a rising tides type thing. Do y'all have any context on that clip?
There's a charitable way to look at it and an uncharitable way to look at it. I choose to look at it uncharitably because I think she's a disingenuous person. But the context was someone asked her directly, do you support reparations for Black Americans? She then takes the time, and this is why I say it's intentional and why I think I have the right to be uncharitable. In response to that, she says, listen, we have, and she just rattles off all of the history, X amount of years of Jim Crow. We had slavery. We had then we have the new Jim Crow that's still happening. Then we have current systemic barrier. So she lists everything that would justify reparations. And then she says, so we do need to do something to offset these things, which is why I'm recommending the LIFT Act, which is, that's one of those rising tides type of situations where it's like, so then and so she's like, so that we can give these families who are who are more likely to be found in disproportionately lower income and whatever status, then we can lift them up so that those families can whatever. And so then the person thankfully re-asks, so you don't support, to be clear, you don't support reparations for Black Americans, specifically for Black Americans. And then she says, well, when we talk about, but we're doing it through our policy. When we target these demographics disproportionately, that's how we do it. So then she says, but I mean, but when you help that family, then whatever you do for that family also helps the community at large, which is true. If they were to actually, do reparations and like fix black debt, it would actually contribute so insanely to our GDP because debt costs the country trillions of dollars a year, trillions. So it's crazy. Poverty costs the country trillions of dollars. We would actually be saving a lot. So. Mm-hmm. So she mentions that, and then she says, but I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people.
Yeah.
And so then at that point, given the fact that you understood the things that were very specifically, directly targeted at us, to then say I'm not going to do something that's only going to benefit them, when you know already the thing that would benefit them would be something that would benefit everybody, so to reparations would benefit everyone. To not answer that question directly 2 times lets me know that you don't support it and that you meant it. But then, when we came later on to different things, there was something for Native Americans, and she was like, I support this, and it was something that only would benefit Native Americans. She could do something specifically for Native Americans, but not something specifically for us. There were things that were only going to benefit Latinos, things that were only going to benefit Asians. Each of those things she was willing to do, but anything that was exclusively and specifically going to benefit us, she said she's not going to do. So you can do things specific for specific groups. You just refuse to do it for us. You don't represent me. She didn't earn my vote. Trump earned my vote against him, but she didn't earn my vote because she was not going to do what's good for us.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, that's always that's the context, and that right there was always my issue with her, and was because even as a person that I support reparations, right? Even as a person that I know that reparations will happen tomorrow, I'm not going to see a cent of it. Yeah, I mean, but I do know that this is just the right thing to do, and that's always been my argument, and that's always been one of my arguments in favor. Of course, with everything that Fanatiq pointed out, the years, how much it would save the country. My thing always came down to is just the right thing to do. Anytime the government has damaged a community, they repaired that community. They repaired them. But when it comes to black people, for some reason, it's a problem. Like, I've never really understood that. I've actually have argued in favor for reparations in some of my streams. I've met probably 1 or 2 black Americans who were against it, and they were always against it on the grounds of, how can we do it? Who do we consider black? I'm like, bro, we have the immigration records. You know, my dad came over here in 1977. I ain't getting it. It's that simple, bro. Like, I don't see what the problem is. Is you know what I mean? And it's always wild to me that whenever I meet a person who's against reparations, now usually it's a person that either doesn't understand the issue, is non-FBA, like how you guys pointed out. But if they are, it's like, bro, did you talk to your grandma yet? Because it's like, how can you? Like, am I in the Twilight Zone? How am I supporting it and you don't? Like, what's happening here? You know what I mean? Just like how you pointed out, like, if you can do specific things, we already have precedent for it. There's been specific policies for the Japanese. The Japanese got reparations. There's already been specific policies for it. And if you're gonna, like, if we're being charitable to Kamala, did she mean to say that I can't do a policy that's only specifically for black people and that's it? I can only be the president for black people. Of course she can't. She's the president of the United States. Of course she's not the president of only black people and all policies are only going to benefit black people. If we're being charitable, that's the most charitable that we can give her. Other than that, you were just saying that you don't support reparations. You know what I mean? That's all you were saying, and I can't rock with you because of that. And it's the thing, like how Fanatiq said, like, you only earn me to vote against someone that I think is going to be worse for us. You didn't really earn me voting for you, and that's a losing strategy every single time. You know what I mean? Besides you being black, besides you being a woman, we kind of know how America is with women leading. You know what I mean? Besides that, you didn't really earn the vote of a lot of people, and they didn't want to vote for Trump. So guess what? Turnout in Georgia and North Carolina and Michigan for black folks, it wasn't 2020 levels. It was 2016 levels because you didn't inspire those folks. They didn't come out to vote for you because, again, for some reason, I'm sorry, I've been talking for a while, but for some reason, like, Democrats do not want to address the systemic issues. And I do think, just like how you two pointed out, it's because for some reason, addressing systemic issues for African Americans is toxic for some reason. It's basically political suicide. They know if they do that, they're going to have to admit that America is systemically racist. They can do that for the Native Americans because it's obvious what they do with Native Americans. It's very, very obvious. They live on reservations, third world conditions, extremely obvious. Latin people, a lot of Latino people have assimilated into whiteness. You know what I mean? Especially down here in Florida. They've assimilated into whiteness. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's kind of easy to talk about them as being the working class. We know what they mean when they say the working class. You know what I mean? But when it comes to black people, like America has always kind of operated on not only benign neglect, but what's not benign neglect, but also deniability, plausible deniability. They've always worked on that. You know what I mean? That's what the Southern strategy is, plausible deniability. If you're talking about tax cuts, we know we're talking about tax cuts are going to hurt black people more than they're going to hurt everybody else. But it's a tax cut. It's not racist. It's only a tax cut. It's forced busing. You know what I mean? That's the type of things. Plausible deniability. That's what Trump operated on. Plausible deniability. You know what I mean? And Democrats they just never got through to it. Since, I would say, probably Clinton, or even before that, probably since Reagan, they've operated on plausible deniability to not address the issues, because they know if they specifically address the issues, you have to admit that America is a systemically racist country. And that could lose you votes. Not only that's definitely going to use you votes against who? The main demographic that votes, which is white folks, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm gonna not really play the heel a little bit here, but I think I'm gonna go off of what you're saying and kind of give at least my perspective on that. I agree that it is political suicide to support any black agenda even in 2024. And Kamala's numbers clearly show that. Not saying that she was the outstanding, person who the black agenda needed. I understand everything that's being said, and it sounds like she's made some pretty sketchy comments in the past. And I think it sucks in two ways. The first way is that, we as the left right now are taking the moral high ground in the political market. I don't know if I would characterize you folks as on the left, but on my personal side, I'm on the left. I'm a traditional liberal. And right now, the liberal and left side of things is supposed to be taking this like sort of moral high ground. We're not going to stoop to that level that the Republicans stoop to. And to me, the way that the left has gone about this strategy, not the left, but rather the Democrats, the way they've gone about this strategy is, let's always do things that are politically acceptable to everyone. We're going to work with Republicans to make deals. We're going to work with Republicans to reach across. And, maybe they're doing it because they think it's the best strategy. Maybe they're doing it because if you just go by a raw numbers basis, there are way more just people on the right than there are people on the left scattered in their separate little rural areas. There could be a lot of reasons for it, but it sucks because we take this strategy on the left, but we also have this moral high ground. The right doesn't make these decisions like we do. Oh, I'm not going to vote for Trump because he clearly doesn't represent my issues fully. The right doesn't give a shit about that. They're looking at it and saying, well, if I vote for this person, we're going to win. And if we win, we get what we want. We're taking that moral high ground and we're looking at it at that additional level. And while I think it's the right thing to do, it's clearly, as we're seeing here, it's not a winning strategy. Kamala was milquetoast at best with everything that she ran with. And the turnout just shows that nobody gives a crap about that anymore. I think this kind of transitions into our next topic, which is sort of why Trump lost and what can be done about it, and how we can, if it's possible, to reach across the aisle to these people. And I do think it's possible to reach across the aisle, but I think we need to stop making these silly deals and stop going in the middle and stop taking this middle ground stance, and rather, like is being said in this panel here today, we need to be more firm and actually stand up for the things that we want and be a little bit more ride or die about them. I think it can go a long way for the Democrats, and it can show that, hey, these aren't just some lazy people who are trying to do the absolute minimum necessary. They don't actually care about the black agenda. I think if someone actually stands up for it, it's either going to be political, it's going to be quite popular. But this sort of half-assing where you kind of say you care about the issue and you just want to do the same things that have kind of been done over the last 20 years, it's not working. and the right's doing nothing. So really, there's just nobody to vote for right now. It's and Fanatiq said I voted against. I didn't vote for Kamala. I voted against Trump. Well, I think we can all understand why that's happening. I guess the question I want to pose to everybody is, what do we do about it? Because there's a lot of animosity and a lot of vitriol, and it's all very well placed. There's a lot of negativity that's been happening on the Democrats, or even if not the Democrats, just those who don't want the Trump agenda. How do we go forward, and how do we reach across? I guess is going to be my question. Anybody who wants to start?
Yeah, so I think y'all are going to disagree with me the most on this. I didn't vote. I could never vote for a Republican. That's just crazy. Like the president, at least. So I didn't vote for Trump, and I didn't vote for Kamala. I voted for Cornel West, even though I hated his platform. But I just couldn't vote for either of those two, and I think that's super unpopular. So just putting that out there. But the reason why I didn't is, Paz, what you were talking about is how Democrats seem to say we're going to work across the aisle and we're going to do what's the easiest to pass based off like cultural agenda. The thing that I would posit to you is that only exists for Black issues. Most of this country is rampantly anti-trans. Most of this country, a lot of Republicans are like, they don't even believe in gay marriage, right? It was just crazy. And we see Democrats stick their necks out politically for those issues, but they don't do it for issues related to FBA people. Until that changes, I'll likely never vote Democrat in my life. I know there's an argument of lesser of two evils, and I know that Trump may be worse in a lot of ways than Democrats, but I can't force myself to work with people who are attempting to work against me. And I know that's like deeply unpopular, but until I see actual real will from Democrats to help FBA or even more globally Black, I just can't support it at all, like in any way. But
so,
yeah.
As a quick follow up, for people who are in your shoes, for people who are in that position, they're feeling the way you're feeling. What do you think is the step forward? Is it, or rather, what do you think is the step forward? How do you think we start to work towards some progress? With that mindset.
Good question. Yeah, I think we have to. I don't know how we do this, but we have to get people politically interested before the final elections. People have to be more interested in primaries. People have to be more interested in local offices and those things. So I think that's the only path politically. But when it comes to non-political, I think that we have to be advocates within our community in trying to fix things outside of the political system as well. I think me and Fanatiq had a conversation about this in the past. I'm a little bit doomer about the political, like the ability to revamp our political system. I always believe in voting for anybody that I'm like energized by. So I think that's a important spectrum and an important way to advocate for Black people. But I'm much more. I can at least see the real gains when I'm doing things in a community and I can actually reach out and touch people and talk to them. So I think both are extremely important. But yeah, that's kind of what I think the best path forward is: being more active locally and then being more active earlier in the primary process to actually try and dictate the candidates that are chosen.
Okay, well, listen, since we're making confessions, I'm gonna go on and confess it too. I ain't vote for Kamala. Um, so I'm in the state of California, and I look at it as there's 0% chance I could ever vote for Trump. If I'm like interested in progress from my folks, there's just no way I could ever do that. But I didn't want to vote for Kamala because she's freaking Kamala Harris, and I thought she was terrible, and I thought she wasn't actually going to do anything for us per se, and because I have the luxury of being in California. My electors were absolutely going towards Kamala Harris.
For sure.
So I didn't have to worry about it. That's why I didn't waste my time. But if I was in a swing state or somewhere where it kind of mattered, I would have I think I might have ended up doing it. Maybe. But I don't know. It would be hard. I was literally terrified of Trump getting a second term after, his first bid. So in the 2020 election, I remember there was all that talk about civil war and the way everything was starting to go. I remember doing gun drills, legitimately, practicing loading and unloading a gun, like all of that, like being prepared, because I live in Whitesville. You know what I mean? Like it's Caucasians around me. Trump flags, they have them. You know what I mean? And Blue Lives Matter flags, and you know what I'm saying, they've had them the entire year, and they've had them. So I live where my region where I live is Republican, actually, even though I'm in California. So I remember being truly terrified. But even still, I couldn't get myself to vote for Joe Biden. I couldn't, because that nigga did that crime bill, and when they asked him about it, he wouldn't walk it back, which is to Volsey's point. Them niggas refused to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, that was a misstep. I'm sorry. That was my bad. Nah, he's just like, yeah, I mean, it was really wanted. Just lying. So ultimately, I couldn't bring myself to vote for her. What I think they can do to gain my vote is they need to start at the state level and at the local level, doing things that very, very clearly demonstrate and signal that they actually have our best interest. What I believe, I'm saying it now, Gavin Newsom is going to probably run for president in 2028. I think he's going to run for president, and he's going to be trying his best to pander towards us, towards our lineage, and telling us what he's going to do for us and so on and so forth, after he sank that reparations bill at the state level in California. I ain't going to forget. So now that I know that this is what he's going to do, I'm already prepared right now, and I'm very happy, because you won't have the Trump to try to bully us into like supporting them, because I think this entire time Trump has been the ultimate like bully, because he's so terrible, so scary, that it's like, man, I'm almost at a point where I'm starting to want to advocate for Kamala. I never could give just like a full-throated like, yo, nah, she's it. I could never do that, but I definitely could give the, yo, Trump is bad enough that I can see us wanting to vote against him. You're not gonna have Trump next year. What the freak are you gonna do to get my vote? You better show me at the state level. You better show me at the local level. It better be in your policy positions from the very beginning. Make sure that it's crystal clear. Then you can get my vote. But until then, nah, benign neglect has been like the banner of the Democrat Party, so I can't support them niggas. Never have, never will.
Okay. Quick follow-up question. What do you
Hold on, I think Volsey wanted to jump in on it.
No, if you have a follow-up question, go ahead, go first.
Oh, well, it's just kind of the original second question, which is, what do you think we should do? Like, what's kind of the plan going forward next 4 years now?
I think next 4 years is, I think, for Democrats to start being like legitimately honest about like their part in our destruction. That crime bill was absolutely heinous. We need to start talking about like the neglect of Barack Obama, because that was the first black president, right? That's what they were saying. And I know that he's, whatever. So when that dude got in office and there were things like, I don't know, police shootings, and he talking about, I can't talk about it because there's a pending case. There is no law, no precedent that says that a president can't do that. You just chose to ignore the issue because you wanted to be that milquetoast nigga that you thought you could play to the other side and win people from the other side. You had super power in the very beginning. You had the House, the Senate, you had the presidency, all of it, right? You could have passed whatever the freak you wanted to, and instead you did nothing with that 2 years, nothing for us, and you can't show me anything that he did for us during his entire presidency. The racial wealth gap continued to increase during his presidency. That nigga failed us. The housing crisis disproportionately harmed black people, and he bailed out the banks without actually doing the things to rectify the damage done to the actual constituents, which are us, right? So the fact of the matter is, that dude didn't do nothing for us, and so since him, they've got to recognize and admit that that's it. And then to add insult to injury, that nigga had the audacity to tongue lash black people and label us as misogynistic because we weren't voting for Kamala Harris. They have to actually start addressing our issues. Reparations needs to be within their platform. We need to start having these conversations. It needs to enter the Overton window, and the only way we do that is when the Democrats actually get behind it and start being reasonable about it, because we can have these conversations with these idiot Republicans who don't know any better. We can actually educate them on the damages that have been done and the viability of reparations, but we can't do that and when we know both parties are both against it and not really willing to fight it. So Democrats, that's what they need to do. Actually come with a reasonable, realistic black agenda, actually start addressing the issues that have actually plagued us, and then at that point, then they can get my support.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, if I hear across the country Democrats for the House and Senate are putting reparations as a part of their platform, as well as whoever is running for president, that would move me. But almost anything short of that may not. Like I'm that done with it because like y'all said, all y'all said benign neglect. You can just see it, and like it's so evident, and to not address it means that you're not for me. Like there is no way you can claim to be for me and continue the history of how this has played out. So yeah.
Definitely. Volchi, what was your answer to that? And again, the question was, why did Kamala lose? What do we do next 4 years?
Gotcha. Yeah, my vote for Kamala was a vote against Trump. That's that's just it. Yeah, I mean, just on the grounds that, especially of what he said about my people, there was no way that I could support a man who said that. There's no way I could support someone who says they want to defund schools that teach about slavery. No way I can support a person that wants to bring back stop and frisk. There's absolutely no way. Yeah, I mean, so like that's all it was. And I know only two people could win. And I'm in Florida, so I basically knew this was going to Trump. But Florida is a perfect example of what frustrates me about Democrats so much. Obama won this state twice, and they just gave it up. And the reason they gave it up is because they felt that Florida was safe. Hispanics were always going to be on their side because all they got to do is talk about immigration and racism. What Democrats forgot is that there's something called shifting demographics. A lot of younger and more educated Hispanics are not going to see themselves as just Hispanic anymore. They're going to see themselves as more assimilated into the American culture. They're going to put the Americanness first before the Hispanicness. And since because they were born here and they were raised here, they see themselves as American. They don't see themselves as immigrants anymore. So they're going to be concerned when people talk about border issues and immigration, they're thinking that, okay, they're going to view the GOP as racist. Which we all know that the euphemism for border security is we don't want no Hispanics here. We know that's a euphemism, but they're not going to take it that way. Yeah, you see what I mean? So it's like when it comes to benign neglect, Florida is a perfect example of that. They literally stopped funding the Democratic Party here in Florida. They didn't send any Spanish speakers here. They didn't go to any voting drives down here. And then for the past 12 years, it's been a solid red state. Miami-Dade County used to be a solid blue county up until Trump. It used to be a solid blue county up until Trump. The past 3 elections has been a solid red county for Trump. Solid red. Yeah, I mean, and we have a huge LGBTQ population in Miami. Huge, solid red county for Trump. You know what I mean? So it's one of those like how we said before, benign neglect. Kamala Harris lost again because even though I felt that there was there were good policies there, what we need to understand is that when it comes to things like inflation, they're always going to blame the current person in power. They're not going to blame the previous person in power. So even if we can say that, hey, this inflation happened because of tariffs, because of these tax cuts, because of the et cetera, inflation is happening under you, and you kept those tariffs. Yeah, I mean, so like you need to address your missteps, which they never fucking do, which, again, is frustrating. They never do, never address their missteps, never actually speaks to people actual conditions. When people like the tax credit is great. Wages are what people are worried about because the tax credit comes all the way next year. Right now, I can't pay my rent. And we know that rent is going up across the country for absolutely no reason at all. We know that this rent is increasing because the companies are taking advantage of poor people and are hoarding houses due to speculation. What are you going to do about that? People can't afford their health care bills. What are you going to do about again, right? Okay. Like, what are you actually going to do about people's actual materials conditions? She is like, I think at the end of the day, she just didn't address that. You know what I mean? She just didn't address that. I think the Israel-Gaza issue also lost her votes because the folks up in Michigan didn't vote for her anymore. Even though she said that she's calling for a ceasefire, she did that way too late. Her entire administration was supporting Israel, so of course that's going to lose her votes. If Democrats, what we do about that, those are basically all the reasons why she lost. On top of the misogyny and racism, we know that's going to be a problem anyway. So That's not even a question. Why did she lose with the people that she needed to win with? Israel, Gaza, not addressing our issues, just like how everybody said. What Democrats need to do, and what I've always said, this needs to be twofold. This needs to be grassroots, and this needs to be on party level. On the grassroots level, if we're not going to bring back the Black Party, the Black Panther Party of self-defense, if that's not something that can happen, something similar needs to happen. You see what I'm saying? Because the Democrats needs to start working with the grassroots again, because they are far disconnected. Like, I know like a certain state representative when I used to live in South Florida. She was my representative. I canvassed for her. I'm the one who went out and got votes for her. When I spoke to her about what's happening in the grassroots, she had no idea. So even at that level, a state representative had no idea what was going on in the grassroots, what the grassroots was talking about. When I go to the barbershop, what the men there talk about. You know what I mean? Like, she had no clue. So it's a disconnect even from the party and the grassroots level. There needs to be a communication again between the grassroots level and the party level, in order for people to know what their material conditions are. I've never been the type of person that believe that if we address working class issues, white working class issues, we have to forget about Black issues. We have to forget about trans rights. We have to forget about reproductive rights. We can walk and chew gum. We can say that, hey, the working class is suffering. They don't have good healthcare plans. They don't have good wages. And also, hey, we need to go ahead and reform police. We need to go ahead and protect reproductive rights. We need to go ahead and get help for trans people and trans youth to get their actual health care in order, their mental health care or whatever gender affirming care is. You know what I mean? We need to understand what exactly is gender affirming care, because I don't think they even understand that. I barely understand it, so I know they don't. You know what I mean? So it's like, these are all things that are part of their party, they're part of their constituents, that they kind of just don't address, take it by the hand, or the GOP is going to take away reproductive rights. All right, so what the hell are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Do you have a plan to actually if you can't bring back Roe v. Wade, do you have a plan to actually have more access to birth control and contraceptives? Do you have a plan to have complex sexual education? Because that can lower the abortion rate as well. Do you actually have a plan to address the school to prison pipeline that affects many Black boys? Do you actually have a plan to address the systemic barriers of Black men getting into work, of Black businesses not getting the loans, of the racist history of credit? Is any of this part of the plan? This needs to be addressed. And finally, reparations. Is that going to be part of your platform or not? Because we can't keep tap dancing around it. Y'all know all the issues. You know this is the right thing to do, but you don't want to do it. And we just need to put your foot to the fire and ask you, why do you not want to pass this? Why do you? It's enough with the studies. We have years of studies already. You can go to a regular local college student at Howard, and they can write you a 30-page study for their school project, and you can present that as a study. We know what the problem is, y'all. We don't need a bill to study it. The only bill that we need to study it is to see how it can be implemented. Is it going to be cash? Is it going to be a certain type of like a tax rebate? What is it actually going to be? But we don't need a study to see if it actually is going to happen. It needs to happen. It needs to be part of your platform. These are the things that they need to do, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go quickly. I think that Kamala lost because of one reason, is cultural elitism. I think that the elitism of the left is just gotten completely out of control. I think Kamala's entire platform was, I'm better than this guy. We don't even need to entertain it. We got this. And I think that is such a multifaceted problem that can't really be put to words in a few minutes. But I think what it does more than anything is it creates this sense for the other side that we're both just going to build up our towers and we're just going to chill in our towers and vote for our guy. And we as the left have to remember that we will never win another election on that strategy, ever. If you want to go by raw people, we lose. That's it. The only way we're ever going to win is with strategy. The right is the side that doesn't do the strategy. They're the side that blindly picks a person and supports them in and out, up or down, no matter what. Let's not forget that this is the same party who elected Bush. We We went to Afghanistan. We went to Iraq and Iran. We did the most outrageous things that you could ever imagine a first world nuclear country would ever do. And we did it because you vote for your guy, we'll vote for our guy. So I think what we need to do is we need to understand why we won in 2020, because everyone was out there constantly attacking these ideas, constantly coming at these ideas with, no, that's not true. Look at the science, look at the facts, whether it was COVID, whether it was immigration, whether it was the George Floyd issue. We were out there fighting that fight. And that's why I think we won in 2020 by a landslide. And I think if we want to win again in 2028, not win being the Democrats, but win being someone who actually cares, we have to get out there and we have to be fighting these fights. We have to show these states and these senators and these electoral people, we have to show them that these are the things we're talking about. These are the things we care about. These are the things that we're fighting for. I've seen a lot of people say, well, now Trump has won, so like, let's just get ready to leave the country. No, now is the time to fight. Now is the time to get out there and fight that fight. We haven't lost everything yet. We very well can, but the only way now to get back from it is to fight. We spent 2024 saying we don't need to fight. This is an easy battle. Trump is obviously going to lose. And look where that got us. So how do we go forward? Communication with everyone, with your friends, with your family. It needs to stop being a taboo issue. It needs to stop being, oh, we don't talk about politics at the family table. We need to start talking about it. We need to start having a real conversation. All these other developed countries in the world have gotten this message. China, Japan, everyone, they've all learned, and we are very, very much behind. And that is why people like this can just come through and cut our country in two. These kind of things don't happen in other countries, and it's because of these cults of personalities, and it's because of the left's cultural elitism. We don't want to go on Joe Rogan. We don't want to have the podcast. We're too good for that. Stop. Yeah. We need to start being the party that actually talks to the people that we represent better than the right ever has. It's very frustrating, but to me, it's a very fixable issue. But it has to be us. It has to be individuals. You can't rely on your senator to do it for you. It has to be you. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So the cultural elitism, I think for sure that's one of the biggest reasons she lost. Like you said, not going, like telling Joe Rogan, hey, yo, come meet me for an hour is bananas. And I think like the one thing that I did respect about Trump, even though I hate him, is he seemed to be every fucking way. Like every platform. Every day I was logging to YouTube and there was like a new 2-hour interview and like a 1 hour and a half interview.
That garbage truck, I knew it was over, man. When he bought that garbage truck, because he had a comedian who said that, we all know about the comedian who said that sketchy thing. Well, Kamala, it was either Kamala or Joe Biden, he called them garbage, referring to that comedian. Well, Trump took it as, you're calling our party garbage. He rented a garbage truck for his next speech. This is someone who's, it's funny, it's a meme, but he knows that that's real. Memes are real. Go online, go on the internet. It's a real thing. We can pretend it's all fun and games and it doesn't affect politics, but the memeiest guy of all time just won again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think understanding how how people digest news has changed and honoring that. Like she went on like all the smoke, but she didn't like. I wanted her to go somewhere that was like that. She did a Fox News interview. I can't remember the name, Brett something, and like it was kind of sort of like, this guy is definitely against her. So it was, to me, it was a good thing because they were gonna press her on things. She's trying to do her little talking point thing, and he was trying to get through it. But I needed her to do more stuff like that because there was a lot of statements that she said in the past. And then when they literally would put her words into an ad, she would say it's disinformation. And it's like, wait, you're saying that your words are disinformation, and you're not even clarifying what your new position is. You're just saying, oh, that was 5 years ago. That's not me anymore. Well, who are you now, right? So I feel like her doing like that Joe Rogan podcast, the 3-hour podcast, people would have got to know her. He would have asked her about some of the more hard-hitting things, and she would have been able to elucidate. And I think he would have gave her a space to do that. And I think not taking that challenge is just another like point towards the elitism that they have for sure. Like,
I agree.
I could agree.
I really quickly want to say that someone pointed out in the chat. I agree 1,000%. Trump will run again in 2028. Anybody who thinks otherwise, anybody who thinks that the electoral system is going to stop him, I don't think so. We thought impeachment was a way to get rid of presidents. The dude's been impeached 3 times. There's no way to stop him. I think he's going to use whatever system he can. And I think as we get into 2026 and 7, we're going to start to hear that rhetoric about abolishing the term limits. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true as well.
Really?
No, I really do think because he did say that. He did say that when he becomes president, you're not going to have to vote again. So I think he's going to talk about abolishing term limits.
Okay, I don't know if that was the context of that, but listen, I'm going to just say for the record, I don't think that he'll be successful. I think the country will stop him, but I absolutely believe he's going to attempt to run a 3rd time because he's not going to take no for an answer if he survives. I genuinely believe it. We'll see. You
just
think?
Imagine, you're saying no, Gambit. Just imagine him going up on stage and saying, "I resign. I'm no longer running. I'm going to secede to the next person." Can you even imagine this dude ever once lending any credence to anyone that is not himself? Can you even picture it?
So I can see him being extremely narcissistic for sure, or selfish, all of that for sure. I think chances that he tries to run or coup the nation in 2028, I would give it like a 3 out of 100. That's how. Yeah, like that's how far away. I don't think it's reasonable. I think it was a good talking point for Democrats to try to energize people to vote. But I just don't feel that way. I feel like he's a bad guy and like he's terrible and he's like a 3 out of 100 as a human being. But I don't think I'm not at all afraid that we may never have another president that's not Trump or somebody that he tries to install. I don't like. I think he'll do the rhetoric thing. I think whoever runs for the Republican side in 2028, he's going to say, "Oh, they're going to try to fix the election." He's going to try to sow seeds of like discontent with the election process. I can see that for sure. But him actually trying to be president for a 3rd time, I can't see that at all. So if I'm wrong, I'll be happy to admit that I was wrong. I just don't. I don't see it.
The reason why I could see it is because I could already see the twist coming. He's gonna remember they still say that the 2020 election was stolen.
For sure.
So they're so because they say that the 2020 election was stolen, they're gonna be like, that was supposed to be my term, and I need to do that term again. You see what I'm saying? They're gonna do some BS like that. That's what they're gonna. I'm telling you right now, they're gonna say some BS like that, and people are actually gonna believe that shit. People are actually gonna believe that stupid shit. They'll be like, okay, since 2020, Trump didn't get his fair term, and 2028 he had to fix things, or 2024 he had to fix things. In 2028 he should do another term because 2020 he's the one that deserved that one. It's gonna be crazy. Let's trust me, it's gonna be crazy. But I wouldn't be surprised if he says something like that. But as far as the memes being so important now, one thing that I've also said before is that what the left needs to understand at this moment is that memes are more important than information. Yeah, I mean, you can give a person a lot of information, but you show them a meme that they think is funny. And I've seen right-wing memes. Like I have a friend of mine who's a quote-unquote moderate. Yeah, I mean, we already know what moderate means nowadays. He's a quote-unquote moderate, and he posts right-wing memes, and it's all crap. You know what I'm saying? It's all crap. It's about the most uncharitable takes of the left that you can ever hear in your life. But he finds it funny, and his friends find it funny. And they think that this is the correct information. Like on their when it comes to like things like reproductive rights. I still remember a meme that he shared, and the meme is literally a woman yelling at a child in a bed saying, "I need to kill my unborn children." That was the meme. And I'm like, this is what you think abortion rights are? Or this is what you think reproductive rights are? That's the information that you're getting. Like it's funny to him, but it's like, because he posted it on a Funny Friday in a political group I know about. But it's like, that's what you think it's funny, but you also think this is the correct information. You know what I mean? Reproductive rights, no matter how much you feel about it, it's way more complex than I want to kill unborn children. You know what I'm saying? It's way more complex than that. So, but the fact is that it's a meme, it's easily digestible, and that's the information that he has from now forward.
Yeah.
Now, does the left need to?
Oh, go ahead.
Right. Does the left need to get memey? Maybe. Maybe we do need to go on to Joe Rogan. Maybe we do need to sit with Aiden Ross, even though Aiden Ross is a complete idiot. You know what I mean? Maybe we do need to sit with people like that And maybe we do need to come up with our own memes, because for a while, I don't know if anyone remembered, but for a while, probably during Obama, a little bit in Obama, after Obama, the left was putting out memes. I mean, we was putting out those memes, but like we didn't do that anymore because we figured out that, you know, we should talk to people and then debate instead. And you know, Fanatiq's in the whole debate sphere. He knows about that. But yeah, we decided to do that instead, which is okay, which is cool. Yeah, I mean, but like again, if memes are more important than information, how exactly do you combat that? Do you become memey yourself, or do you like debate against the meme? What do you do at that point? You know, we need to understand, like, this is how people absorb information. It's easily digestible. It's a picture. And the thing about memes is that they're more than just internet pictures. They're more than just internet jokes. They're a behavioral idea. It's in psychology. You can look this up in psychology. A meme is a behavioral idea. So the moment you put the idea out there, like Inception was right. Like you can really force someone to accept an idea without them knowing it, just by you suggesting things to them. You see what I mean? So it's like we need to find a way to combat that. Otherwise, otherwise another person who comes up in 2028, you know, if Trump doesn't try to get elected, he's just gonna be another meme guy. You know what I mean? And guess what? He's gonna win because people find it entertaining. And that's the danger of mixing entertainment with politics. I saw this a while ago because when I was studying politics in college, I was like, people are really mixing entertainment with politics, and it's going to end up bad because whoever entertains you more is the one who's going to win. Is that really how you want to run the country? Whoever's the most entertaining? You know what I mean? And if that's the case, then all Democrats need to do is find, you know, run Cat Williams or something like that and have them roast the other side, and boom, we'll win. You know what I mean? Just do that. I'm guessing. But like, you can't, like politics needs to be more than this entertainment. Yeah, you know I mean, it needs to be more than memes. But how do we combat it? Because that's where we are now.
Well, yeah, I think a big problem is that like I said earlier, is that the Democrats were on that moral high ground kind of ride right now. We don't want to make memes, make light of things that are taken very seriously, and we don't want to lie. And that puts us very much behind a right-wing establishment who's willing and able to do both. We're in a post-truth society, for sure. That doesn't mean that truth doesn't matter. Doesn't mean that truth doesn't exist. It just means that truth is not the primary moving factor as much as it is like the cultural zeitgeist of what people want to believe. We have to do something about it, but I don't think the answer, like we've all been saying, the answer is not, oh, we just ignore what's happening. We ignore the memes. We pretend. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that the start is to acknowledge it and start to work these things into our arguments. Just saying that something's factually incorrect is just obviously not enough anymore. It has to have some feelings on it as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
I feel like, man, listen, it does need all of that. We do need the memes. We need the information to be correct, all of those things. But I also feel like, man, we need honesty within ourselves, because even when it comes to questions like abortion, we don't call abortion, we call it reproductive rights. And then we start having these arguments where we're really arguing past each other. And here's why. Because for some people, the right, what they're talking about very frequently is specifically abortion. I don't want abortion. That's it. Right? The left is like, no, it's reproductive rights. And then, of course, now that starts talking about like contraceptives and all sorts of other things, right? And then what ends up happening is, instead of us being able to have a genuine conversation about abortion, it's like now you're like obfuscating abortion into a bunch of other things. And so then the right gets extremely caustic and disgusting and like just eliminating all conversations about it altogether by passing like really draconian, really disgusting like abortion bans that end up costing people their lives, right? Like there's a woman who, like, you know, they need to terminate the pregnancy in order for her to survive. I have a cousin that's gone through that because her heart couldn't handle it. And it's like, it's you or the baby. In that situation, I'm always going to say, please kill that baby, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But now we're at a point where, because the left has been unwilling to actually genuinely engage in the conversation, we can't get there. And I feel like the reason why the left was so genuinely why refused to genuinely engage for all this time was because they had won. Roe v. Wade was inside of whatever, so I don't have to actually entertain the conversation. All I'll do is I'll just label you a misogynist. I'll say that you don't care about women's bodies. I'll say you don't care about health care, and that's all I got to do. I did the labeling thing. I don't have to engage you. It's over. Now, we can't actually have a real conversation. We've never been able to do it. You're instantly labeled a hate monger because if you're saying, hey, I believe I'm pro-life, right? So now we can't have genuine conversations, and it happens that way with a lot of things, even when it comes to like trans stuff, right? Where it'll be like, for their health care. And it's like, the right is like very clearly saying, I don't think you should transition kids. And instead of that, it'll be like, you want to deny trans kids health care. And it's like, not necessarily. If we were talking about like therapy and stuff like that, plenty of people would be on board with that. Like, but now you're just like, no, any affirming care whatsoever is out of the window. So a lot of times this stuff is getting like reframed, repurposed, and not genuine. So then we can't actually have real conversations. And the right is really simple. Them niggas they're not in any kind of deep thought about any of it. It's really simple. Right. I'm pro-life. That's it. But now, so you don't care about women's bodies and their right to health care. And it's like that. No, if you were talking about Obamacare for women, I mean, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about abortions. And there's always this reframing. And I feel like that's losing because the right, because of their simplicity, every time we try to rephrase it in order to make it sound a little bit more palatable, like, and ameliorate what the actual issue is into something more pleasant, every time we're doing that, we're not actually winning. Maybe you sound good to yourself. The right just hears you like, oh, this person isn't being genuine. They're not being honest. And they're still not actually addressing the issue that I care about. So I'm voting against them. We need honesty.
Yeah.
No, I completely. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, just really quick. One thing that's been interesting me on abortion issues. So me, I'll never be pro-abortion for sure, ever. Now there are the obvious outliers: rape, incest, mother's life. All of those like clarifications, I'm always for those. But me personally, just as a personal person, if I'm talking to one of my friends and they're like, I'm thinking about getting an abortion, I'm never encouraging them to do that ever. It'll never happen. I think one thing that like speaks to Fanatiq's point, Democrats never talk about any restrictions that they'll put, even when given like as much room as they need. It's like in the debate, they were like, oh, hey, would you support late-term abortions? And the talking point, I think it sounds good to Democrats, and like, but it's like disgusting, is, oh, well, those don't happen frequently. But you can still have a rule. I can have a rule that people shouldn't murder, even though murder isn't common and happening everywhere. So the inability to like elucidate their like real positions is crazy to me. Because if you want, just say, hey, I am okay with late-term abortions. Don't just say, oh, well, we shouldn't even have a conversation about that because the frequency of them is not enough. So I don't think people understand how like off-putting that type of rhetoric is, rather than actually revealing your position. Because I just want to know who people are. I just want to know what you think. So when you say a conversation can't even be broached, what is that? You're a politician. Like, what do you mean we can't talk about the policy that you might support? So I don't think people understand how like off-putting that is. But when it comes to all the other stuff that's under the umbrella of reproductive hair, access to contraception, blah blah, of course I'm like extreme fan of all of that. I'll just personally, for me, I'll never be okay with like, I'm having an economic situation. I'm finna YOLO this life. It's crazy to me.
I feel you. I mean, I think one of the reasons why it became from abortion to reproductive rights, especially from what I saw in my area, is because they actually were making it harder to get contraceptives and trying to only put abstinence-only education in school. So it became from, let's talk about abortion, to all reproductive rights, because these conservative politicians, especially in the local areas, were actually trying to limit those things. You know what I mean? So now we got to talk about all of it now. You know what I mean? But like, it is correct that what Fanatiq said, when most people talk about it on a one-to-one setting, they're talking about this specific thing. Like, I don't think, Cletus or Joe Bob from Arkansas wants to take away birth control. They're talking about specifically abortion. So if I'm coming to him, the city slicker talking about reproductive rights and you're a misogynist, they might not even know what the fuck that even means. Like, what are you talking? I'm talking about abortion. You know what I mean? They're not gonna know what the hell that means. And I don't know what it means. Like, they're not smart enough to get it. They are gonna get it, but it's not what they're talking about. You know what I mean? So it's I do agree that like we actually need to have the conversation. Like for example, with me, when I do these type of when I'm on my streams and I do this type of debates, I already told them, like, yes, I'm pro-choice. I don't believe a fetus is a person until 24 weeks because that's when they gain sentience. I just tell them straight up. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, it's alive, it's a body, but once it hits 24 weeks and they actually have a brain and actually can have sentience, then I agree that it's a person and it has rights. And if an abortion happens, it should only be for the life of the mother. Otherwise, if you want an abortion, it should be the ones that keep the fetus alive. That's what I always say. Yeah, I mean, and then we can go ahead and have a discussion on that. Now, me, I'm not a believer, a Bible or a religious person. You know, I mean, I don't believe in souls or anything like that. So if a person says that it has a soul to it, I'm gonna tell them that, okay, do you think it has a soul? I don't. Yeah, I mean, this is not how we actually do policy. We don't run policy that way. You see what I'm saying? So like, we have to get to a point where we actually understand each other, and just like Kaya said, have an honest conversation. And when it comes to transitioning children, you know, I mean, just like Fanatiq said, when it comes to things like therapy and helping kids out and stuff like that, of course, I think everybody agrees with that. It's just that the reason I think why the language gets conflated is because when it comes to things like gender affirming care, therapy is included in that. See what I'm saying? So it's like I think like the language, just like how we're saying, is it gets to a point where it's so ambiguous. Like, language can have ambiguity. We all know that. But because the language around this and the conversation around this, the language around it is so, like, obfuscating and blurry and opaque. It's basically gets to what you guys are talking about, talking past each other instead of getting to the actual issue. You see what I mean?
I want to ask you something directly, though, because I like one of Fanatiq's critiques a lot, so I want to get your thoughts on it. I think the left does this purposefully. I think under the gender affirming care umbrella, there's therapy, there's mastectomies, and all the other things that happen. There's puberty blockers, there's all of these different things. I think instead of having policy discussions about those different things, the left chooses to say it's an umbrella and give me all of it or give me none of it. And then the right says, well, I'm going to give you none of it. And then they start to create laws against the entire enterprise, right? What do you feel the left's agency in that is, and how do you think they're using it, and how should they change it?
This is exactly what you said. They make it all an umbrella term. You know what I mean? There's not going to be everyone who agrees with a 16-year-old getting a mastectomy. Now, me, I'm the type of person that I mind the business that pays me. If that 16-year-old trans female to male wants to get a mastectomy, her parents understand it, her doctors understand it, they all talk about the risks, and they all still choose to go with it, that's on you now. If you regret it later, you chose that. Because you knew the risk, your parents knew the risk, your doctors told you. You know what I mean? So that's on you now.
You knew the risk is the murky part. But we shouldn't go into that conversation.
I mean, man. Yeah, you're right. We can't.
I know it's murky. Yeah, I know it's a discussion for another. I know it's murky, but I think before surgery all happens, they all tell them what the risks are. You know what I mean? These things don't, in my opinion, these things don't happen quick either. But as far as what you were saying, they do that. They amalgamate all these into just one thing and then break it down later. What needs to happen is that exactly how I said. It said, listen, gender affirming care lists these things. There's puberty blockers. There's like social transitioning, like pronouns, wearing certain clothes, etc. And then finally there's things like surgery or whatever. And I said the first place you start with is social transitioning with therapy, pronouns, and the way that they dress. That's the first step. Always. You know what I mean? Now when it comes to puberty blockers and surgeries, which again, even if we say surgeries are rare, surgeries can still happen. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the part that most people have an issue with. Yeah, I mean, that's when you get to the conversation of, they're going after the kids to mutilate and castrate them and et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of charged language that is way more complex than people getting mutilated and castrated and, 7-year-old boys chopping off their penis. That's not really what's happening. Yeah, if you know what I'm saying? But because the left does not do a good job of breaking down these issues and saying this is the umbrella and these are all the things that are under the umbrella and these are what we're going to be talking about. It all gets into, the drag queens want 8-year-old girls to, put a dildo on or something. You know what I mean? That's the conversation that happens. And it is happening because, trust me, it happened on my streams. And I'm on Instagram right now with someone telling me that, yes, 7-year-old boys were cutting off their penis because they thought they were a girl. They're literally telling me that. And I'm like, this is not what's happening. It's way more complex than that. And like, yes, this is a complex issue. So we need to talk about it complexly. I think the first thing that the left needs to do is say that all these things are included in gender affirming care, but the first step that always happens is social transitioning. Pronouns, certain type of dresses or whatever they're going to wear, and etc. and therapy, stuff like that. Are you okay with that? Because when I was talking to my family who are not really with the trans thing, when I told them like this is what they're going to be doing, are you okay with that? Even that's a hard conversation to have because, of course, I'm assuming if you guys are Christian, my Haitians are very, very Christian. They don't believe that men should be wearing dresses or boys should be wearing dresses. They don't believe in that. Now, the only thing I can tell them is like, I understand that you believe that, but this society isn't built on what you believe. You know what I'm saying? So like, this is what's happening to these people. They have this issue. This is what's going on in their mind and their disposition. Are you going to make laws that goes against that? Because if you do, what is the consequence? So I think right now the left needs to start talking like that, like basically breaking down these issues one by one, and then actually getting people to understand and basically not talk about this as an all-encompassing thing. You know what I mean? Like, you can say that this is the umbrella and these are the things under the umbrella. What do you disagree with, and how do we get to a point where we can actually pass a policy? You see what I mean? Does all that make sense?
Yeah, I wanted to say really quickly, even within a lot of these things, I think that it's happening. For example, when we talk about sex education, I mean, if you were to ask anybody when I was growing up, sex education is absolutely important. Love it. It's a good thing. We don't want like uninformed children. It's a part of life. They need to learn this at a certain age, especially when they're about to be hitting puberty, because some parents aren't going to have those conversations. I believe it. It makes all the sense in the world. But roped into sex education, there's a bunch of nonsense too. So then at this point, when you start talking about, we're going to start talking to kindergartners and spend a certain amount of time with kindergartners about sex education, it's like, wait, I think that's a little bit early. I don't think I should be talking to a 5-year-old about what sex is and what sexual penetration is. That's crazy. So then again, a lot of stuff starts getting roped up where they just have an agenda of early sexualization, and I think some of those things are absolutely harmful, and then now we can't have genuine conversations because then you want to say, no, you just want to abolish sex education altogether, which sometimes is what ends up happening is people throw out the baby with the bathwater because they don't like everything that it encompasses in the first place. So they're doing that. And I want to point out also that the right place hide the stick. When they start labeling everything as critical race theory, any kind of discussion about race whatsoever is now just critical race theory, and our kids don't need it. So now they're not actually being honest about what it is. I agree anti-racism was absolutely disgusting. Ibram X. Kendi set us back a bunch of years. I can't stand that man. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I don't think we should be learning about our history. So the right does the same thing on their cultural issues that are important to them in order to accomplish their agenda. So what politics has become is just one big game of dishonesty and hide the stick. This is the thing that I really like want to hide my racism, so I'll just attack critical race theory and label everything that would actually educate people as critical race theory. I did it. I really want
woke.
Right, or wokeism, or I really like have an agenda towards early sexualization of children, and I'm going to label it all as sexual education and gender affirming care. And now I kind of get away with my agenda, right? And so I think both of them are being very dishonest in that way, and I think there are nuances within each of these things, because I do believe in sex education. I don't know about teaching I do know. I don't want you teaching 5-year-olds about, whatever. I don't think you should be putting that, even with that framework, in the mind of young 5-year-olds about what transgenderism is when they're not fully comfortable within themselves, with their own systems. They're trying to understand the world, and right now we're teaching them through exceptions, right? It's like when you're teaching English, when you're teaching reading, you don't start with the silent E, you don't start with the KN, you start with the basics and the ones that are the most common. Now that you have a good working of that, a good knowledgeable working system of how this language, how the alphabet works, then we can start going into, hey, sometimes E is silent. Then we can go in sometimes K is silent, right? That's when you start doing that. You don't start with the exceptions, and you're doing that when you're telling a 5-year-old about transgenderism and non-binaryism. That's crazy to me. So this is all being roped in there. Same thing when it comes to abortion. and these things kind of bother me because I see videos where someone's like, here, let me just show you. So a woman calls up to Planned Parenthood and it's just like, hey, I'm 7 months pregnant, but I need to abort this baby. Da, 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 da. Can we do it? And the woman is giving her these like things, and she's saying like, "Well, there's a way we can register it." And she's like, "Well, okay, but can I do it for sure?" Like, is it? They're like, "Yeah, we can. We have to do it this way." And she's like explaining to her what the process is. So what's the process like, and when can I come in? And they're like, "We're gonna look for the earliest appointment, but yes, it can still be done. You can do this." And so then it's like, when you start saying that to some people are gonna be very, very, very disturbed by that. Now, I need to know: is this video absolutely a hoax? I don't believe that it is. I think there are people within those institutions that will absolutely do this. So then now we can't just label it as this isn't worthy of a conversation. We have to be honest about the fact some people truly don't care. Some people truly are fine with that. Now you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You want to say, I'm not having a conversation about this altogether, even though I know for a fact this is something that some people believe in practice and it is occurring, even if it's a hyper minority. It is occurring. So then now we can't have genuine conversations, because I know that if you do have that conversation, now you have to actually start making the growth or actually proving or clarifying what your actual position is, because now you can't just dismiss it. You got to tell me, do you actually support late-term abortions? And for some of them the answer is yes, which of course is going to be a crazy turn off to the right, which is going to make them throw out the baby with the bathwater. And so now it gets really, really convoluted. But I would be fine with them throwing out the baby with the bathwater if both sides are going to be dishonest like that. I understand why you're doing it, and it's fine to me. I need honesty. We need transparency so we can actually make progress on all of these issues. There's no way Trump should win as dishonest as he is, but he's able to do so because the left is dishonest too. I think he's probably the most overt lying politician that's ever existed, being honest. I genuinely think Trump is. I know most politicians lie in my opinion, but I think Trump is on a whole nother level. But because of the rampant dishonesty on the left through obfuscation, intentional distortion, intentional putting everything under one giant penumbra so that you can go ahead and pass your agenda, all of those things right there, I would say are enough that make it to where Trump still has a potential to win, because the right can point to the left dishonesty too. I'm going to end there.
All right.
No, I could agree with that.
Let's just real quick. I think we should probably start to go into the sort of closing / epilogue statements here. So real quick, we'll go around, give you kind of your final take on the matter, and then I want you also to say, going forward for these next 4 years here, are you feeling pessimistic or optimistic, and why? Anybody would like to start?
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead. We all did at the same time.
Yeah, he did.
That's so funny.
Okay. Yeah, I can
go ahead.
I can go and round it off. Everything Fanatiq said, I agree with. We need to start having honesty and not obfuscating these issues. If you support, because I've seen people say that they support like something like abortion all 9 months. And when I ask them to clarify, they say that an abortion doesn't necessarily have to kill the fetus or the baby. Okay, cool. So if that's the case, say that. You know what I'm saying? So we need to have the honesty around those discussions and make your positions clear. Democrats need to address the fact that they've been operating on benign neglect, and that's not going to work anymore. You need to actually start addressing systemic issues. The left, as a grassroots, we need to confront misinformation. Whether we're going to do it with memes, whether we're going to do it with jokes, or whether we're going to do it with debate, we need to start addressing misinformation and clarifying our positions. No more opaqueness. Be straight up with it. Be real with it. You feel me? If you support a trans teenage girl getting mastectomy, say you support that. Yeah, I mean, if you don't support that and you don't know, say it. Honestly, I don't know about that. Yeah, I mean, just be honest with it. Say you support care, but you don't know about this. Like, be honest and say this is still a discussion. Be honest with everything that you're saying. Our politicians, we know our politicians are going to be liars, but at the end of the day, there is a way to move the Overton window for all of America. Before Bernie Sanders, universal health care was one of the most toxic things that you can say in politics. Before Bernie Sanders, if Bernie Sanders went up on the Democratic ticket and talked about universal health care, You talk to any middle America person from North Carolina, Tennessee, or Arkansas, they would say they will be fine with with universal healthcare right now. He was able to move that window. All right, so like we need to start being honest. Talk about systemic issues on a broad stage. Move that window. Talk about universal healthcare on that stage. Move that window. Talk about any minority rights, reproductive rights, trans rights, any of those rights on a national stage. Say what you support. Be honest with it. We need to do that all from the grassroots all the way up to the top. I know politicians are usually liars, but you need to come up with a way to communicate these issues in a way that's going to galvanize your base and gain people to trust you more. Admit your mistakes and do what you can to apologize and move towards the future. This is things that the left needs and it has not been doing, and we need to do more of it.
Okay, and going forward, next 4 years, are you pessimistic or optimistic?
Oh, things are gonna go to shit. I predict there's either gonna be either a major recession or depression. History rhymes more than it repeats, and we're seeing history rhyme right now. History is rhyming right now with 2000. It's rhyming with 1920s. It's all rhyming. The stock market is up. We have a demagogue in office and fervent conservatism and populism. Fervent conservative populism we have right now. They all happen during Bush, it happened during Hoover, it happened during Nixon, and it was all it all followed with either a huge economic recession or a depression. So that's what I predict for the next 4 years. Of course, the racists are now emboldened. What black people need to do now that the racists are emboldened is do what Fanatiq did. All right, do your gun drills. Get out and get you your weapons. Be prepared because we saw the Nazis marching. All right, we saw the Nazis marching. You're gonna see a lot more of that. For our allies, help us out any way that you can. Use any privilege that you have, use any income that you have to help us out. That don't mean abandon your family, of course, just to help us out. But be our ally. Be an actual ally if you're going to be an ally. That's my prediction for the next 4 years.
And where can people find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Volsy Thoughts. You can also find me on TikTok, the same thing, Volsy Thoughts. And on Instagram as well. I do live streams, and I'm going to be planning panels within the next few months called Nuance and Black. It's going to be about Black issues. I definitely want Gambit and Fanatiq on those panels as well. I'll let y'all know when I launch that.
Cool. Very cool. Well, thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Gambit, would you like to go?
Okay. Yeah. So first off, I want to say this was amazing conversation. I'm really happy I was here. Appreciate you, Fanatiq, for the invite, and appreciate the topics. And this was great. A couple of things that I didn't get to touch on, just in closing. We talked about post-truth society. I think in a lot of ways we've been here. It just haven't been as evident, right? We are part of a nation that said Black people were different than white people and were animals. And that was truth, even though the obvious evidence that it wasn't true, right? So I think over time, we've always embraced ideas that are not true, regardless of the underlying data. So I wouldn't say we're now in a post-truth society. This is just the next wave of nonsense that's happening. When we talked about entertainment, one of the things I wanted to bring up is what I think is pretty much racism by the Democrat Party. I don't like that the way to reach us politically is to get Megan Good to shake her ass on stage, and that's the extent of political activism within the Black community. I think they should sit down with Black leaders and have deep, in-depth conversations. But I think that would create a accountability matrix that they don't want. So their goal is to say, hey, get LeBron James and Megan Good and these people to say, hey, vote for me. And that's all you dumb Black niggas need, because all y'all care about is entertainment, right? So I think the way that the Democratic Party even interacts with the Black community is disgusting to me. When it comes to abortion, even though I do have religious and other bases, I also think it's a political and an economic issue. I think we can agree, like we talked about, things like reparations are seen as inflammatory topics. The less and less of us that exists when these things do seem to be targeted to our communities, whether it's infrastructure and otherwise, the less and less of us that exist, the less likely we're going to have political activism to pass these things. So not only am I against reparations for like just personal and religious reasons. I'm also against for economic and political reasons, and I think that's something that should be able to reach secular people as well. So I think the entire institution can't help us, given that we're a shrinking minority in this country, and the Democratic Party is starting to talk to the growing minorities who aren't engaging in abortion at the same rates. So I think there's lots of arguments against abortion, secular and non-secular. But I also think Democrats, one thing that we didn't talk about, things like what happened with RGB and not being able to replace her, which may now happen with Sotomayor, I can't think of how you pronounce her name, and Trump is going to have elected the most people in history. Like, some of this is the Democrats' fault. Like, Trump is a bad person, but they're like giving him the ability to be worse and worse, right? So I think strategy, I think the Democratic Party doesn't care about Black people. I think from a strategic perspective, they're incredibly dumb. So because of this, the answer to Pon's question, I'm doomer about the next 4 years or the next however many years we want to say, because I don't think Democrats possess the will to help my people, and by my people I mean Black people, all Black people. And I also don't think they have the intelligence to even do the things that they are energized to do. So yeah, so I'm pretty doomer on all of that. But yeah, so I'm GSU Gambit. You can only find me on Twitter because I don't stream these days. But I love to join panel. So yeah, I would definitely appreciate the invite. And Fanatiq, anytime you want to invite me, I'll be back.
Okay. So how do I feel over the next 4 years? I actually feel somewhat optimistic. I feel like a lot of the responses that people have are from fragility because they've never been in a position where they felt this afraid before. I'm a Black man living in America. I've never felt like any president was really going to have my back. I didn't feel that way about Obama before he got elected. When that woman said, "Oh, I'm so glad because now I'm not going to have to worry about putting gas in my car and paying my mortgage because if I take care of him, he's going to take care of me," I thought she was absolutely insane. That was one of the most crazy things. It blew my mind at the time. I just didn't understand why a person would ever put that kind of stock inside of a politician. But then you got to also remember, I came from the era when Bill Clinton passed that crime bill, and it directly impacted some of my immediate family members. So the idea that the idea that either side was going to ever work for me was crazy. I survived Bush presidency. I survived Clinton's presidency, which was absolutely disgusting for us, right? So then, and then Obama's presidency again did nothing. So I've always had a doomer mentality. Do I think still that yes, I would rather not Trump because of just how disgusting he is? Sure. But the fact of the matter was, it didn't matter who won. We weren't going to be helped. Kamala wasn't going to do nothing that was only going to benefit black people. No. Remember how she said that? So I didn't have this newfound insane terror. It's like, man, now what might actually happen is that other people are going to be in similar boats and circumstances, and so the government might actually do stuff to fix that. You see, student loan debt, it was going to widen the racial wealth gap because disproportionately that stuff was going to benefit white folks. But ultimately, there were a lot of Black people that were going to get some insane benefits from that student loan debt, forgiveness. So the idea is now that more white people are going to experience the terror, I think we're going to start having these conversations. I'm pro-radicalization. I know radical is generally an unfavorable term, but I think that this system is so corrupt and so disgusting that we do need to radically alter it. It needs to be altered radically, and I think Trump's presidency and the disgustingness that nigga's about to do over this next 2 to 4 years is going to blow everyone's mind. Niggas is going to be radical. Reparations, to some, would be a radical idea, and I'm all for radical ideas. So because of that, I'm actually not nearly as doomer. I know I'm going to survive. I'm also a very, very practicing Christian. So for me, I know that God got me. I'm going to be all right. Yeah. Regardless of the circumstances, I know God's going to protect me. God's going to have me. So then I'm not so worried. I worry for the country. I worry for the collective. I worry for the trajectory. I don't personally worry. I'm excited there might be some actual benefits just because of the radicalization that's going to happen. So that's where I stand. You can find me. My name is Fanatiq, Fanatiq. Thank you to everybody who's been in the comments. I've been reading and kind of chatting with a few of you. Some of my friends have stopped by on the YouTube, and I've never really streamed on YouTube. That's crazy. There's more people on YouTube than there was on Twitch at one point. So I appreciate you guys for coming by. You can find me as under the name Fanatiq, Fanatiq, on Spotify for my music or whatever music service you do. This everywhere. And then you can find me as Mr. Fanatiq on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch. YouTube is Ask Fanatiq. But if you're seeing this, you probably already know that. But yeah, you can find me on there. I want to be doing these panels every Wednesday. I typically do a panel, the podcast with Trihex every Thursday. I believe it's canceled tomorrow. He's running into some computer problems. So I might try to do some impromptu panel tomorrow as well. We'll see how that goes. But either way, yeah, you can find me on all those platforms. Thank you guys for coming by. Please don't forget to hit the Discord. You can obviously reach us there. Let us know ways that we can improve this content. Leave comments, like, subscribe and share and all that good stuff.
Nice. I'll be quick. I am also not doomer. I am also feeling pretty optimistic. Now I would say I'm cautiously optimistic because I'm very worried that obviously there's going to be some serious changes that can happen. But one of the things about America, if you've lived here, you know, is that it's very, very hard to change core things about our country. It's one of our biggest pros and it's one of our biggest cons, is that we cannot change things easily. So hopefully there will be some kind of resistance to that. Going forward, yes, like I said, I'm optimistic, and I think the way forward is just more and more conversations. We got to stop with in my opinion, I think we just have to stop with fact-based arguments in general. At this point, everybody just has their own separate set of facts. And most people don't believe most people believe those facts because of an underlying set of feelings. I think talking about those feelings is much more important and, in my opinion, much more fruitful of a conversation. I don't think you're ever going to convince a Republican that the weather machines don't exist, but you can talk to them about their childhood, about the way they were raised, when they started believing in conspiracy theories. And maybe you can help them to understand that they're more likely to believe in a conspiracy theory because of their raising and not because it's something that's factually true, because they found this hidden thing that no one else can find. I think the only way forward is with conversation, care, and more importantly than anything else, we have to actually listen to the other side and not assume that they believe what they believe because they're evil, horrible morons, but rather that they believe what they believe because they have a completely different set of facts in a post-fact world. And they just need someone to reach out and to show them. And hopefully over these next few years, these people will come back to Twitch seeing that, okay, our guy won, we can come here, we can gloat a little bit. Sure, let's do that. Let's have this conversation. If you're on the right and you're watching these things and you're thinking, I want to get on there, get on here. Your opinion needs to be heard so that it can be attacked and scrutinized, and we can decide who the better idea is with listening instead of yelling at each other with one-shots on Twitter. And I'm Just Pawns. You can find me on Twitch, Just Pawns, and YouTube, Just Pawns. I don't really stream a lot these days, but I probably will be getting back into it. And thank you very much for everyone who is here, and thank you very much for Fanatiq for having me on the show.
All right, that was a successful one. I'm glad it kind of came together at the last minute. I'll do better in the future. We were supposed to end around 7. We went late because we started so late. That's why we, time that we did. In the future, we'll try to actually aim for 5 to 7. Thank y'all for coming by. Yeah, man, I want to have that conversation about black jobs. That's so
immigration. Yeah,
man, the black jobs.
Yeah, immigration is going to be an important one.
It is. How do you feel about the black jobs statement from Trump? Let me hear your thoughts. But I'm not going to debate you or anything right now. I just want to just hear what you think.
I think it was just one of those things that's ridiculous. You know, we all know Trump's to kind of like talks out his ass and just says things out that fly off the handle. I think it was just like one of those, ridiculous statements that, it's one of those things like I didn't take serious. You know what I mean? But I thought people wouldn't take it serious. And then I saw people actually did take it serious. And I'm like, yeah, come on. For the people who are angry about it, like, yeah, I know this is what Trump is. Like, meme it. You know what I mean? Like, just laugh at it and meme it. And another side of people who took it serious were like saying that he's telling the truth, that, immigrants are replacing the jobs that black people are quote unquote supposed to get. And one thing is that even though I've always said that I understand the sentiment, but we live in a country where it's basically, artificial scarcity, and the fact that it's a capitalist country. You know what I mean? There are no designated jobs for any ethnicity. You're either going to get a job or you're not. and more often than not, you know, you see what I'm saying? Like there is discrimination against Black people in the job market. I'm not gonna deny that. But at the end of the day, do certain jobs belong to us or not? There's no way I can say that. So like the entire narrative of, you know, immigrants taking Black jobs, we have to ask which immigrants, because like I said, my parents are immigrants. Did they take a Black job or not? And like, what exactly is a Black job? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't take it serious because of that. You know what I mean? I didn't take it serious because of, like, this is not a serious statement. So I just didn't really worry about it. But for the people who do take it serious, I always ask the same question: what exactly is a Black job, and what job belongs specifically to Black people? Because I've always known in this society, nothing belong to us. We got to fight for it. You feel me?
Okay. Dang, I ain't gonna lie, I fully disagree, but I don't feel like debating right now. I feel like we you know what I'm saying, we've been at it, but I respect your take. I hear where you're coming from. I think that's probably how Trihex feels about it too, and him and I are going to be discussing it pretty soon.
Yeah.
No, it really is more of a conversation starter for me, because it's like I've never really got clarity on what exactly does that mean, and what belongs to Black people, and does it belong to me as well as a Black person, or does it only belong to ethnically American Black people? Like, I really need the clarity. Like, I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? So it's not really we're gonna go back and forth doing with stats and debates and do the whole destiny thing. I'm not gonna. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? I really just want to get declared. Yeah,
I got you. No, you good.
I just want to get the clarity. You feel me?
Yeah. Well, so okay. To answer then, actually, I mean, I'm pretty sure Gambit, you got an opinion on that. What would you say is Black jobs?
I do have an opinion on it, but I'd rather save it the next week because I do got to run.
Okay.
But I would love to have this conversation for sure.
Sure.
I definitely agree more with how Fanatiq is probably thinking about this, but I think it's an interesting conversation to figure out where we all go and what's at the bottom of all of our ideas. So yeah, I'd love to have the conversation.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Well,
Gavin, I want to ask you, what type of camera do you have? 'Cause I see it actually follows you every time that you move. What type of camera is that?
It's the Instalink, right? Instalink 360. Instalink 360.
Instalink 360. That's what I because I remember.
Yeah.
If you get two of them, it switches to whoever's speaking, right?
I don't know. I've only ever had one.
You only have one.
It's
Okay.
really good. It's really good for like instruction. Like there's some things I do like privately where I'm helping people, and like it helps out with that stuff because it can follow me around as I like walk around the room. But yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That's what
we can't hear you. Oh, you're talking to somebody else. Gotcha.
Yeah. That's what I've been looking at. Yeah, because I saw it like a while ago when I went to go do a radio show with someone, and I'm like, what camera is that? And I always wanted to know. But yeah, that's it. If you get a second one and someone else starts speaking, the camera will pan to them. Like it does that. Like it's dope. It's a dope camera. I've always want to get one of those because I've always wanted to like have do something like this, like a panel, but in a whole studio. But I know I will need multiple cameras.
Exactly.
You know
exactly.
So
yeah.
So one day I want to do those. But yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
No problem.
So
all right, y'all. I'll talk soon.
I'll catch you later, bro. I was just gonna explain to him what Black jobs is from my perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool.
Yeah, but I'll catch you. Yeah, so Black jobs. When I understood it, I looked at Black jobs like from the same context that we look at Black unemployment rate. When we talk about Black unemployment rate, what does that mean to you?
The unemployment rate is basically specifically Black people without work, not working at all, just not in the job market. Specifically, Black people.
Mm-hmm. So when we talk about Black jobs, what I took it to mean was jobs that were typically typically procured by Black people. So for instance, if maybe there was a point in time when Black people were like overwhelmingly doing agricultural work, which that was a thing. And now agricultural work is overwhelmingly immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would say that would be a Black job, in the sense that this is a job that is typically done by Black people. Like probably at one point it was like 80 to 90% of it was done by Black people, and now like we're less than like 5% of it, right? and it's like 90%, you know, Latinos and immigrants. So then
Latino immigrants, yeah.
Yeah. So then at that point, when he's talking about the immigrants are coming to take our job, I think it stood to reason, right? When we look at the vast majority of immigrants that entered into the country over this time period were Hispanic people. And we find out that one of the things like economists will clearly like elucidate is that immigrants tend to what they say suppress the jobs of like low wage earners. That you'll see that those are the kind of the spaces that they occupy typically. And so then it's like, well, if black people are overwhelmingly hyper represented within low wage earnings, then that means that if they're suppressing those wages. Furthermore, you'll find like I remember like there was a bunch of things where they were showing like what are those things called, like job hiring firms, like the places that like go specifically to help you with like finding a job, whatever, like, you know,
temp agencies.
Yeah, right. Those things, when there was a bunch of them that were erected or that exclusively would work with Hispanic people. And so black people were going into these agencies and recording videos and demonstrating, like, they say that they can't give me a job, that they can't help me. But meanwhile, these immigrant Hispanic people, they're helping them. The signs all over it are mentioning immigrant Hispanic people. And so then you start having questions like, wait a minute, like, why is that happening? So the more of those kind of things happen, when that was a sentiment that I had before Trump said a single freaking word about this. These are one of the negative impacts of immigration on our country, of illegal immigration. Because you'll find like specific immigrant groups like Indians obviously are like overwhelmingly represented within IT, things like that. So there's going to be differences, right, depending on which specific demographic you're talking about. But the idea that immigrants don't have an impact on on the jobs that were typically done by black people is crazy. And I felt like when people kept saying black jobs was like so racist, I felt like it's like we're living in la la land, because we can say black unemployment rate. So if we can say black unemployment rate, why can't we say black jobs? Like I could not understand that.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Now I get clarity. You know, I mean, it's more of a euphemism than an actual thing that we say. I got you. All right, yeah, that does make sense. It does beg the question on well, it does really beg the question. We know why black people are overwhelming within the lower skilled, lower wage job. We know why that is. So that does go back to as a matter of fact, oh my God, my lady always says I need to be a political strategist, because immediately once you explain all that, and now I understand that what it is, Kamala could have jumped on that. She could have said, yes, there are black jobs, and there's a reason why there are black jobs, because black people in this country have been systematically forced into these positions, which is why we need to address redlining. We need to address discrimination in our job market. We need to address, the school to prison pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. She could have easily jumped on it and did that. I need to be a political strategist. I really
100%. But in order to do that, that means that she obviously wants to fix those issues. And that means now, instead of us trying to just get a win on Trump, we have to actually address the black issues that she doesn't want to do. So now, instead of her doing that, we're going to all pretend that none of us understand what the freak it means. And then we're just switch the narrative that it's racist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't actually have to address all of those underlying issues. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like that was intentionally done so that they didn't have to address the issues that are plaguing black people.
Right. I feel you. I mean, it is a question that that's frustrating to me. That now when I've asked this question around what people think, they'll always just say, just Democrats are just racist. That's why. I could accept that, but it's like it always bothers me into how can a lot of Democrats, not all of them, but how can a lot of Democrats understand all these issues, but then when it comes to actually addressing the systemic issue, when it comes to actually addressing, what would can kind of not all the way fix it, but can catch black people up, especially African Americans, the issue of reparations, why do they step away from it so much? It's like they know ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And then it was like, okay, so the answer is X, right? But then they'll be like, well, we don't want to do X. Why is that? Like, the answer is X. Why come you just won't admit it? Like, it bothers me.
I don't think that they do know. I think a lot of Democrats are completely unaware. I didn't know what redlining was, like, for most of my life. I had no idea like what it meant, what the impact was, and so on and so forth. And none of us were taught about it in school. I mean, nigga, less than 18% of high school U.S. seniors can identify. I'm sorry, less than 8% of high school U.S. seniors can identify slavery as one of the root causes of the Civil War.
Wow.
Less than 8%.
That's sad, man.
It's insane. So then when you start knowing that, it's like, oh, yeah, if I'm talking to you about like something like redlining, yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you. If I'm talking about reparations for housing and you don't understand what it was, almost every Democrat, you know, they think redlining was just, oh, the bank's not giving us loans. Hell, that was what Destiny argued. Like,
yeah,
I shouldn't have said his
it's
name.
more than that.
Yeah, like it's like, no, that's not what redlining is at all. It was the government, the U.S. government saying we're not, you know what I mean? But so people don't even understand that. So then when people don't even understand how segregation worked, like the actual impacts of it, like people aren't uninformed about the history of this country. History is one of the least favored subjects in education. So because of that, it's like, what you don't even know why reparations is needed. There are so many Democrats that still to this day believe that reparations isn't that you know that there is no systemic oppression, or that like it basically ended. Like they can't if you were to ask them, point out how housing discrimination is impacting people living today, they would have no answer. They don't know.
Yeah. No.
So then,
that makes sense.
So then how do I expect you to get on board with reparations and you don't even understand the problem? Like reparations is a rectification or it's repair of a problem. If you don't know the problem exists, then that repair doesn't even make sense.
No, it makes yeah. What you're saying makes sense. Now I get it, because that part always frustrates me. It's like, how can you know everything, but when it comes to the actual solution, you step and fetch. Like what's the problem? But now that you're saying it, like if they actually don't know, that makes sense. That makes way more sense than them just not wanting to do it, because it's something that frustrated me to no end. It's like, the problem. This is the repair. Why won't you do the repair? Like, it's right there in front of you, buddy. Yeah, I mean, but that does make sense. They actually don't know the problem, or they don't know the solution. They know the problem. They don't know the solution. And yeah, just like I had to learn a lot about redlining, because I did think it was just the banks not giving out any loans, but then I found out that this was government backed by local and federal decisions. And not only that, it not only affect the homeowners. Redlining was more than just, you live here, I live there. It was also groceries. Like, you can't even go to the same grocery store because I won't put a grocery store in the black area. I mean, grocery stores won't get mortgages or loans to build in the black area. You had to build in the white area. Stuff like that. Clinics, no banks there, no clinics. No I mean? Yeah. So no hospitals, which is why a lot of hoods are food deserts. You know what I mean? Like my lady's from Orlando, right? And one of the poor neighborhoods in Orlando is Pine Hills, and it's a complete food desert. When I used to come up here to visit her before I moved up here, when I used to visit her, like I would ask her, hey, let's go to the grocery store or something like that, and she'll like, okay, we have to drive like 20 minutes that way. And I'm like, the grocery store is 20 minutes out your way? It's like, yeah, 20 minutes out the way. But, you'll find a corner store with a whole bunch of crap processed food and chips.
That's
you'll find a McDonald's.
Extremely expensive. That corner store, they always, it's like OD overpriced nonsense, like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, exactly. You'll find a 7-Eleven. I mean, you'll find a KFC. You feel me? You'll find a Church's Chicken. I haven't been to Church's Chicken in so long. But you'll find a Popeyes. They're all around the corner. But an actual, in Florida, we have something called Publix. I think in Texas they have HEB. I'm not sure what you guys have in California. In California, you guys have Kroger's or something like that, right? Or Whole Foods. Albertsons. There you have it. Yeah. Albertsons. Like your Albertsons is basically our Publix. That's what we have over here. Yeah, I mean, so it's like when I asked her where's the Publix was like 25, 30 minutes away. You have to go out the way to do it. The closest was the Walmart Supercenter, but it's like, is Walmart the best, freshest food? It's
it's better than that 7-Eleven food. I'm gonna tell you that.
It is.
But yeah,
it is.
I think Walmart is actually the devil. I think they're one of the largest contributors to ruining this country. Legitimately, I think that.
Oh yeah. They are one of the largest contributors. One thing when it comes to the left, one thing I also noticed, I think I'm a little bit more to the left than you are. And one thing I've seen amongst the left is a lot of infighting. How do you think we actually resolve all that? Because even on the far left, the Marxist Leninists and the Democrat Socialists and the Maoists, they don't get along, and the tankies, they don't even like each other. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though I'm a little bit more to the left than you are, I think we can actually come to a common ground and agree on certain things to get some sort of policy passed. But there's so much infighting on the left that I didn't get to say that on the stream, but I think that's one of the reasons why we also lose a lot, because we cannot agree, and there's a lot of purity testing. One thing about conservatives that I see that it's kind of admirable, even though it's scary, they're gonna fall in line. They're always going to fall in line. Even Republican light, log cabin Republicans, even though Donald Trump could say tomorrow that I'm going to take away all LGBTQ rights, log cabin Republicans will still vote for him. You know what I mean? They still will. They will fall in line. If Kamala Harris said almost nothing about trans rights, they wouldn't vote for her. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we infight a lot and purity test a lot. I've always wanted to pick your mind on how exactly do we Big Tent resolve all that, because they were able to do it during Reagan, and it's kind of like we haven't been able to do it yet. You see what I'm saying? Why do you think that is?
Well, it's because, so Republicans are inherently, and I genuinely believe this, I think Republicans are inherently dishonest, right? I think their entire platform is dishonest, like inherently. Like, so what they want is the privatization of literally everything so that businesses can take and make money. So all of the things that they're arguing and all that stuff is literally intentionally deceptive, specifically so that they can try to make money for their donors and the big business. So because of that, then they know how, whatever the issue is that they know can be divisive, they'll get behind it. Because ultimately what they're doing is just, what's something that I know our base will agree on that would divide them from the left, and we'll use those things. So that actually is a very successful thing. When it comes to the left, I genuinely believe, at its heart of heart, wants to actually address and fix problems. I think that's a genuine thing. So then, because of that, they don't have the ability of just hiding a stick entirely at all times. A lot of times they have to be very, very honest about what they want. And since they're actually in the business of trying to fix genuine problems with people's lives, then people are going to get very, very specific about what would actually do that. Whereas if all we're doing is just creating a boogeyman so that we can make you vote for us, we don't have to worry about like solutions and how like practicality or any of that. We just do whatever we want. You know what I mean? And that's the difference. So I think it's an inherent problem of the left because they genuinely, in some situations, want to fix certain problems. Or at least they claim to. I think the corporations, a lot of times, they ain't trying to do nothing.
Yeah. Like the corporations, like one thing I've said is that capitalism is our economic system right now. I don't think we're ever going to get to our society is not at the point where we're ready to accept, communism or anything like that. Even though communism sounds nice, we're not going to get there yet. Probably in the next 100 years. Or next 200 years. I don't think we're ever going to get there yet. But capitalism is our system now, so we have to deal with it for now. It can be livable, but one thing we need to recognize is that it's always profit over people when it comes to the capitalist market. It's always going to be profit over people. Like if they can make $50 million for their shareholders, but a neighborhood of families get poisoned water, they're gonna choose the $50 million all the time.
Every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's every single time. So it's like it's profit over people. So we need to have it regulated, and I think the right has done a very good job with conflating regulating capitalism with scary USSR communism essentially. Yeah, I mean now over the next few years, the window has moved on that. I've actually mentioned that the Overton window has kind of moved on that, where people are now accepting, yeah, we could use a little bit more regulation because these companies don't care about us. Yeah, they moved it a little bit, but like it's not as much as I feel that it needs to be, because it's like we have the richest man on the planet now being a government cabinet employee. I mean, it is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
My bad. Go ahead. I want to share one last thing with you, and then but go ahead first.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to share like you just started your TikTok, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think once you get 1,000 followers, then you'll be able to get up on the do lives and get up on the panels. But I wanted to do these panels not just on TikTok, but I'm probably gonna try to do it on Twitch or YouTube because TikTok might get banned soon, but I'll probably do it on TikTok first. But I wanted to share my screen with you about one of the things that I want to do. Give me 1 second and bring it up.
All right.
There it is. It's telling me to stream. Is that correct? I'll just go live?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I never used it before. Let's see if it come up. Okay, there we go. That's my like kind of the show that I want to do, like the panels I want to do, called Nuance and Black, talk about like black issues. Am I still on? Yeah, I'm still on. To talk about like black issues. This is one of them. Like we were talking about before, the diaspora wars. I think that's one thing that has gotten toxic. Of course, not not anything with you. You know what I'm saying? You haven't gotten toxic or anything like that. But you see, like these are some of the questions that I want to ask the panel. Well, this is gender wars. Let me go back to diaspora wars. Yeah, there it is, diaspora wars. Because I've heard this question a lot. Where's your family from? Yeah, I mean, do you dislike or distrust Black Americans, African Americans? Because I have seen that sentiment said before, especially on Twitter. You know what I mean? So it's Twitter and TikTok. I've seen it on both. So I definitely want to get these like conversations out there to see these are conversation starters. Do you support reparations is a big one. Did you attend an HBCU? Of course, because we get a lot of Caribbean and continental Africans attending HBCUs. I attended one, and this one, Tether, because I've heard that a lot. I've been called Tether before. People have been called Tethers before, so I've always want to know what exactly is it, because I've heard so many different like explanations of what this is, but there's never really no tied down question. Like, but as far as this goes, what do you think of this? Do you think I should add more questions, take away some? What do you think?
I think those are really good questions. Depends on your guest. Your guest will end up determining the quality of the content. But I think the questions are valid. Yeah, I think that should be good. I think the reparations question should be further down the line.
I like have it be like one of the last questions. Yeah, gotcha. I think that's in my what is the gender wars one? Because we always talk. I think you spoke to a divester before, right? It was on yeah. Yeah, so these are questions that I really want to ask too, because not just the divestors, but also the red pill space. Yeah, I mean, because like especially this question right here, what exactly is masculinity and femininity? Because the way they describe these things, it's not clear. Have you ever have a clear Have you ever heard the clear definition of what these are? Because every time they say things like men are the hunters, and I'm always like, men are the hunters. What does that mean? You feel me?
Yeah. So I've never heard it really elucidated, but I kind of just have a general idea of what masculinity is and femininity is, and I've generally just taken people kind of in good faith that when a male says masculinity, he's talking about the things that we generally associate with males, meaning leadership, breadwinning, being kind of the more stoic head of a household. So that's what I typically think of as masculinity, and I think femininity has always been significantly more submissive, supportive roles, and just being, I would say, submissive and supportive. And
softness,
nurturing.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I've always taken them as their word. I always mean that that's what they mean. But excuse me, I'm sorry about that. But I've always noticed that men can also be very, very supportive and nurturing and soft, and women can be leaders and breadwinners and stuff like that. So it's like, that's what my fifth question is about. Why are the roles so important? Yeah, I mean, I think these are things that folks don't think about. Now, myself, it's not that as a man in my house, I mean, I don't provide for my wife, of course. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, I'm gonna be out there, making the money, make sure our bills get paid, et cetera, because as an adult, I want to live like that. I want to make sure my partner does too. But we put so much emphasis on them being roles that a man or a woman is supposed to do, and I don't see why that's so important. Do you think that's a good question to ask?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I have an answer, but I think it's a great question because I think a lot of times people kind of already just assume that everyone understands where they're coming from. The crazy thing is, I think a lot of people don't know themselves why they want these things or why they're important to them or why they exist. It's just, this is the way it is and I want it to be the way it is. Mm-hmm. So when you ask a man, like, why is it so problematic? Because, like, for a woman to be the breadwinner and to be the head of the household, a lot of times they would just be like, because that's just not what her role is. Which is, that's basically you're repeating back the question to me. Why is that not her role? You know what I mean? I mean, why is that her role, and why is it important? Well, because, you know, that's the way it's supposed to be. It's like, so you're saying that's the role.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
never
we're
actually
in a
answer.
Circle. Yeah, that's it. We're going in a circle. They never. Yeah, they don't know. They never actually ask. And the thing is, like, for me, like, I let people, you know, do what they do, like, live your life the way that you live your life. If you think that this is the role that you're supposed to have, then that's the role that you agree with. Now, when I speak to my sister, she of course says this. This is for her Christian background. She says, you know, as a Christian, this is what I believe these are the rules are supposed to be. So if I ask her why, she's going to say, because I'm a Christian. That's it. Or if I ask a Muslim, they're going to be like, you know, because I'm a Muslim, this is what the Quran says to do. Boom. You know what I mean? Like, those parts I understand. But it's when people don't use those as the reason, that's when I ask them, okay, if you're not using that as your reason, then why is it so important? You know what I mean? And like even if they do use that, I always ask them, do you think it's a sin if it's reversed? Like, does the Bible say anything about it being a sin? Does the Quran say anything about it being haram? Like, does it actually say that? Or is it just one of those things that we take as within our culture as being Christians or Muslims? You know what I mean? Not to argue against it or those things, even if I don't believe it, I'm going to let you have it. But is it so important because of that? And does your holy text actually say that? Or is it a cultural thing that you've taken? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer.
I also want to ask that question.
There's a religious reason and a secular reason. The religious reason you already know. Biblically, like, this is the way things are, right?
Right.
Secular reason why it actually makes the most sense for the man to be the bread earner and the provider is because there are all sorts of complications that happen as a result of a woman doing it. Let me give you a few. One, if you're talking about a family, very often most people want and plan to have children. Mm-hmm. If you have children, during the time when you have your breadwinning wife, that is 9 months of complications, right? Like, where it's like, hey, maybe sometimes they have complicated pregnancies, and during the last 3 months of their pregnancies, they can't work anymore. Sometimes they're put on a bed rest because they're going to lose the baby if they don't. And so now you have 6 months. You have 6 months where you don't have, like, she's not out there earning, she's not working. What do you do in that type of situation if, you know, if she didn't have good enough maternity leave to fully cover the expenses?
Right.
You're kind of screwed. And then it doesn't stop there. During the time when the baby is born, if you want to nurse, right, then that means now the mother is the one who's literally lactating and producing the milk for your infant, which I think is obviously the best you can do. It's way better than formula. It's way better than whatever. Breastfeeding is by far the most favorable. And so when you're in that type of a situation, well, now you're going to be trying to pump and freeze and do all of these other complicated things in order to try to make it work. And of course, there are some things that are negatively associated with, like, bottle feeding babies, like with their teeth and just other stuff, right? So ultimately, it's like, now we're running into this problem. And so
makes sense.
All of that gets put into jeopardy, or it creates a very strong complication where now, since we started a family, since we started, you know, our progeny, now you're having to choose between the offspring and your income, and you're the one that we're most reliant on because you're the breadwinner. That is problematic to some degree. Now, we can adjust, we can make it work, we can downsize, I can try to, like, pick up even more work, I can try to do things to offset those deficits until you're fully back in, like, you know, whatever, all of those things, but that becomes really, really problematic. Whereas if the male is a breadwinner and he's the highest earner, when the mother is like during maternity leave, it's okay. Our biggest financial contribution, I still got us. While you're lactating and it's like breastfeeding, if you want to take extra time off, that's good. It creates all this opportunity for the child to fully bond and always be with the parent. It's all of these things are good, and you're the natural nurturer, which of course raising a baby is all about nurturing. So all of these things make all the sense in the world. It makes all the sense why women are more likely positioned towards being more agreeable and more nurturing. I think it's literally inherent to femininity, to females. And so because of that, it's like, man, this makes all the sense in the world why that happens and why that what the risks associated with, you know, with not being the breadwinner. And then furthermore, like sometimes like jobs don't give you 9 months of maternity leave. Like in a lot of states they don't. And what happens when you have a complicated pregnancy and the recovery is at least 6 months? I know someone that it was 9. And so for that 9 months, like several months before the birth and then 9 months afterward, that's a year off. That means that's a year of not having this job time in order to earn your promotions and stuff, right? Because promotions and stuff come from like active labor. So then during that time, you're not even earning points towards your promotion, which of course is inhibiting your ability to provide even more. Whereas if I'm the male and you're in, you know, whatever, I can continue to work during this time. And the whole time I'm just getting more and more money to be able to help take care of my child. Right, so it's just all of those things are why I think it makes all the sense in the world for the man to be the breadwinner and so on and so forth.
No, yeah, no, all that makes sense. You elucidated that perfectly, because like when I talk to the thing is what I liked about how you explained it without, you know, demeaning women, because when I talk to other dudes about this, you know, and the fresh and fit, you know, the coon niggas space. You know what I'm saying? When you talk to them niggas, like it's always, you know, well, I'm the man and women are too emotional to do this and that and the third. And it's like, bro, come on now. You know what I'm saying? You know, the women can't, you know, be the breadwinners, because then they'll be, you know, they'll emasculate you and they'll say this, that, and I'm like, bro, like, come on. Like my sister makes more money than her husband. She's never done that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's you can't really, I mean, I know you can't judge it on one-on-one basis, but it's like, it's not necessary to do that. You see what I'm saying? But you elucidated that perfectly, how just on a natural occurrence, especially if a lot of women, especially with Black women, they deal with postpartum depression. You know what I'm saying? It does make sense for the man to be the breadwinner in those situations, in order for her to, you know, get the help that she needs, bond with the baby that she needs. And of course, even if we're the breadwinner, we should be there, you know, to take care of our child, because men can still be nurturing. We do have a nurturing side. Yeah, I mean, we have that. Is just that the women may have it more so because of, you know, they carry the child and more of those hormones. She has more of those hormones. So that's a perfect explanation. I do agree with that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Did you know?
I think I have one last one. My bad. Go ahead.
Really quickly, did you know that dads typically, when they have children, that it actually lowers their testosterone? Because like testosterone is like counterproductive towards nurturing and stuff like that. It's a lot more aggressive, so on and so forth, right? And so as a result of that, typically what's needed is significantly more empathy and like I said, empathy, agreeableness, and nurturing, and that's not testosterone. Is not that. You know what I mean? So it actually, like, I think I gotta find some studies on it. I'd heard this talking point from someone else, but it made all the sense in the world. They were saying that, yeah, like that they were saying that there were studies that demonstrated that testosterone decreases with fatherhood. Now, I would want to know to be sure that it's fatherhood and it's not just that testosterone decreases with age, and of course, fatherhood means more time and more age, etc.
More time, more age, yeah.
So,
that makes total sense. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna want to bring you up on those panels. I already know, even though I understood everything that you said, I think it makes total sense. I already know there's gonna be people who disagree. You know what I mean? Either men or women who's gonna disagree with everything that you said. So it's gonna be a good discussion. I'm gonna try to have it, you know, be not contentious, because I'm tired of having very, very contentious, very, very bad faith discussions within our political realm, in our social realm, especially when it comes to things like social things like you know, gender roles and politics and things like that. Those things are like they never turn out well. You know what I'm saying? So that's just one of those things that I would like to talk about. And I don't think I'm gonna end the gender wars, you know, with this, but we could at least get it to a better place where people understand each other better. You feel me?
Yeah, for the people that you're dealing with, because this gender war nonsense it's frustrating. I've never really engaged in it very much. The one time I did was with Annalisa because I had to shut her down because she was destroying all these black men who weren't able to contend with her ideas. They couldn't debate because she was dishonest and bad faith, and she was being bolstered by, you know, a retard. So because of that, I had to step in there. But typically, I really kind of avoid gender war stuff because I think it's silly. Like it's
a waste of time, bro.
Conversation is the dumbest conversation of all time.
Oh my fucking god!
And they're gonna do it every week. They do it every single week.
Every week, bro. Every week. It's like, bro, why are we doing 50-50? If y'all live together, how come y'all don't have a shared account?
Right.
What is happening here?
Right. And nigga, and then the thing is, you know, I've never done 50-50. Like in my relationships, I like insist on paying for everything. Literally, I always have. But if I was dating a chick who insisted that she was not going to go 50-50 and like when we needed it, I wouldn't be dating that chick. It'd be like, oh, okay, you're not for me. Like,
and that's it.
Yeah, and I'd be over it. And you know, I mean, you're entitled to feel the way you want, and you're entitled to want, you know, somebody to pay all your bills and stuff like that, you know, but yeah, I'm just not him. I do it in practice. But if it's what you're demanding or you're expecting, yeah, no, it becomes a little bit harder. Because I'm the same way. Yeah. I'm the same way. The moment you demanding it, now I'm like, nah, I don't want to do it for you. 100%. Because like, who is you to demand this for me? Like, you think you're entitled to my money? Yeah, no.
No, you're not entitled to my money. I'm gonna do it because I want to do it for you, not because you're entitled. Hell no.
Right. It's over.
That's
immediately.
Yeah, man. And this last one is a thing that well, question number 4 I think is gonna be one of the best ones, I think. My question number 4 is, what does a black agenda look like? Because in black politics, we do have people who are left, right, and people who are center. You know what I mean? So it's like I do want to know what policy, because I do want to speak to a few black. I don't know a lot of black conservatives, but I do want to speak to them to see, like, when it comes to the right, what policies or what beliefs does the right offer that will benefit black people? Because, like I said, I don't see anything from the GOP or the conservative platform in general that benefits black people. It's all just about, you know, America, fuck yeah, we don't like the gays. You know what I'm saying? That's really basically really all I see from conservatives. So I want to know that. From leftists, I know a lot of leftists are communists. Not all of them are, but I do know a lot of black leftists who are more communist. I don't think I'm there yet because I don't think society is ready for that. But when it comes to question number 4, each person I've spoken to, both conservatives and leftists, have said this before: a black agenda. You know what I mean? And I really want to know what it looks like. We spoke about that on the previous panel, but a black agenda, I really want to know from both sides, what does it look like? You know what I mean? Because it's yeah, because we need to figure it out.
To that either, to be honest. I think most people are really uninformed. They just have general talking points, and when you get into specifics, they don't really have like a brain for it. They've not thought it out. I want to point out to you, by the way, I don't think this country will ever be ready for communism, and I think it's a good thing. I don't think communism actually works. And the reason why I say that is because I think when it comes to like the idea of communism is basically the idea that the government, you know, controls everything, you know, like the means of production, they do it all, right? And then they like evenly distribute it to all of the people in order to get people to, you know, like and everyone's functioning as a society while the government is providing like pretty much all of their needs. The reason why I say communism doesn't work is because there are a lot of things that are needed for a functional society that people won't do without motivation. So, for instance, you know that I don't know if you know this. Do you know which country produces the most biotechnical advances? Like the most biotechnical advancements?
biotechnical, right? It's if it's not the United States, then I know it's either a country in Europe or it could be China.
It's United States. You want to know
Is
something?
it is the United States? Okay.
It is. And you want to know what's really crazy? The United States produces more biotechnical advances than literally every other country in the world combined. Okay? So we're more than 50% of all advancements, and you have countries like China, which might be like, I don't know, 5% of the advancements, and so on and so forth. And the numbers vary by country to country, but we're more than all of them combined. The reason why we are is because we have a profit motive. So when you come up with a biotechnical advancement, like say, I don't know, people used to insert like pig insulin for diabetic victims, right? They would just use pig insulin because it was similar enough, okay? For people who had diabetes. Eventually, we developed synthetic insulin. That synthetic insulin is significantly more efficient. It's perfect. It can be like literally put into like systems where it like just it releases more slowly, like at a steadier rate over a longer period of time. So it's just way better at regulation instead of just spiking and then dropping down over time and all this kind of nonsense. It's perfect. Okay. Well, the person who came up with that for a reason, because they knew that if they came up with that, they would get money. They're going to get paid a lot because everyone's going to have to do it. And the United States says, if you come up with this, we'll give you like a 10-year patent where you're the only person able to sell it and you're allowed to set the price. So when you do that and you're setting this price and you're making all of this money, like it covers all of the things that you like you covered. Like it covers like your investment. You end up making a crap ton of profit, right? Well, that's the reason why you'd be willing to risk a lot of money on research and development in order to come up with this, because you need to make that money, and you know that you're gonna make that money. If you come up with the advancement, it's you're golden. So that maybe you come up with a better MRI machine, slightly better, just gives you just slightly better results. That's enough to say, hey, well then, yeah, like, I'm gonna go ahead and sell this to the hospitals. They'll use this now. It's what's the best, and I'm gonna make literally hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions. Okay.
Gotcha.
Same with all of the prescription drugs, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what ends up happening is every other country around the world then gets to go and see, wait a minute, y'all came up with this. We're going to go ahead and do it and sell it in our country because your patent is only for the United States. We're going to reverse engineer this drug and we're going to make it for ourselves, and then we're going to give it to our citizens for free. They didn't spend the billions of dollars on research and development. They just waited until we did it and then took the results and then did it for themselves. All that research and development is typically funded or subsidized by our government. So our government is spending more on biotechnical advances than every other country because we're going to come up with better stuff, but then the other countries get the benefit because Big Daddy USA is the best country in the world. I said all that to say, the reason why these other countries don't do this research and development is because there's no profit motive, because human beings are at the center of this research and development. And typically what motivates human beings is self-interest. Capitalism takes advantage of that self-interest, and it says, hey, you want something, you want to get it, do something for society. The more people you can benefit, the more money you're going to make. So now you're motivated to do something for everyone, for yourself, because you really care about yourself. It has nothing to do with everyone else. If you could just get them to give you the money and you could just steal it all and take it for free, you would do that, because people are selfish and lazy and self-motivated. So when it's and so now that you're saying, okay, I come up with this technology, I'm going to make all this profit, I'm going to do it. There's a reason why communist countries don't come up with these things, because it's like, well, what do I get for it? You're telling me. And then here's the other thing, profit motive. I will go to school for 8 extra years through grueling medical school where it's really difficult and it's awful to be a doctor, because I'm going to make over $300,000 a year. If you're telling me I have to do 8 extra years of grueling school with like really strenuous labor, like, like schoolwork and curriculum and all these things, but you're telling me I'm going to make the exact same as the guy who's the crossing guard whenever the school gets out, I'm not doing that 8 extra years of school. So when communism says everyone gets an equal share, regardless of like the necessity or how powerful your job is, you start killing the profit motive. Because why the freak am I going to do anything that's harder? You're going to tell me I'm going to be a construction worker and do all this back-breaking labor, and at the end of the day, I'm going to get the exact same ration as the guy who was the crossing guard, and I'm coming home tired and fatigued and sore, and I'm having to really motivate myself to get up to go to work because I know how grueling and back-breaking this work is, but I'm supposed to do that, and I'm getting nothing beneficial for myself. Why the freak would I do that? I'm going to do nothing. And that's why I don't believe communism works. Now, you're 1,000,000,000% right. I know this is long. I'm about to end it. Trust me. You're 1,000,000,000% right. Capitalism will always value profits over people. And so what we need capitalism because we need to we need to motivate people to work, motivate people to invent, motivate people to advance. But what we need are amazing safety nets that end up covering all of the holes that are caused by that. We need hyper regulation so that these businesses don't sit there and say, I'm going to poison your water supply because it's easier for me to get rid of my waste that way. And it's going to save me a lot of money. The regulation stops them from doing that because they're going to value profits over people. So if we have good regulations that make it so that you can't poison these people and you're still going to be making your money, it's not going to be making as much money. But when we do that, then that now says, hey, like, we're doing good. Or when we say, you can't just say, hey, I'm sorry, I know that you hit 80 years old and you can't work anymore, and now that you can't work anymore, you just got to die. We have to have Social Security, right? Or otherwise you just have a bunch of old people that just start dying because they can't take care of themselves anymore because their body can no longer produce. So that means we need a system like that. We need a system that says, hey, I know you had an untimely death of your husband or whatever, the breadwinner in your family. You're a young family with 2 children and you're 27 years old. We need a system. We need something to help you now that you're going to be making a transition to trying to be a breadwinner or an earner yourself, right? Because you were a stay-at-home mom. We need a system, AFDC, and we need to make sure that it's done better, and we need to make sure that it's done well. So all of these are socialist systems that help us to deal with the cracks of capitalism, which says produce for profit, produce for earning, produce to make a living. Socialism helps to offset those things because that will create some problems, but it's still the best system because it capitalizes on greed and self-interest, which are the biggest motivators in mankind. Communism does not.
All right, gotcha. Yeah, and you know what? That's why I describe myself as a dim socialist, or because what you basically described is essentially socialism. You know what I mean? Now I'm not sure if you ever heard this person. You ever heard of Jovan Bradley? He's another streamer. He's a political streamer. You ever heard of him? No? Okay. Well, Jovan Bradley, right? He's a political streamer that's a communist, right? And I follow his content, and I was listening to him. The way that he describes communism. This is just in case you ever run into a communist. The way that he describes communism is a stateless, moneyless society, stateless, moneyless, classless society. So essentially, the reason why I've always said that I don't think people are ready for that, and I think it'll eventually collapse on itself, is it because that first part, stateless. Anytime you get a group of people together, to actually, do something, you're either going to have a state or someone's going to convince everyone to create a state. We are not ready as a species to not have states. Right. Yeah, and if we go stateless tomorrow, by January we'll have a state again. Yep. Exactly, we'll have a state again. You know what I'm saying? So, I think people have pointed out to him what you pointed out, that the government controlling everything, but he's always said that that's not communism. It's a stateless, moneyless society. Now, there are forms of communism that are state communism, exactly what you said. That doesn't work. Yeah, I've always agreed with that. That doesn't work. But the stateless, moneyless society part, sure, it would be great to not have money, because at the end of the day, all money is for is to gather resources and barter for resources, for us to not instead of me saying I need a bottle of water, I'm going to give you my cell phone for your bottle of water. I'll give you these pieces of paper that represent something between us. You know what I mean? And because of those things, I don't think statelessness works. I don't think moneyless works. because at the end of the day, we're not going to keep bartering. We're going to need to come up with a medium of exchange. Like our ancestors, from thousands and thousands of years ago, who were hunter-gatherers, they did the barter thing until they saw that seashells were a good way to barter between each other, or like these little pretty rocks that we called gold are a good way to exchange between each other, and we all understand what the medium exchange is. You know what I mean? Instead of saying, for my 5 apples, I'm gonna give you 3 bananas, but is 3 bananas worth 5 apples, or is 1 pineapple worth 7 coconuts? Instead of doing that, let's just have this little medium of exchange. So I've always said, excuse me, as much as I enjoy his content, the reason why I've always said that state communism doesn't work because of everything that you said, but also his form of communism, which is basically anarchism, I don't think that works either, because as a human society, we're going to rebuild states, and we're going to have medium of exchange. So stateless and moneyless eventually is going to collapse on itself. And at least I give a stateless society at max 20 years before it collapses and it becomes a state again. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, at the end of the day, we need something that's in the middle, because it's exactly what you said. Capitalism supports profit over people. So we're going to need something to fill in those cracks, which is why I describe myself as a democratic socialist, because I think society is more ready for that than to go stateless. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
100%. I'm going to say something. One of the biggest problems I always have when people start talking about stateless money, like those kinds of things, like even like the abolish the police thing, I feel like it's almost in the same kind of thing. Is that my question how do you deal with bad actors? How do you deal with a bad actor in a stateless, moneyless society who decides, I don't want to work for my goods, I just want your goods because you've already done the work for them. So I'm going to take your goods, meaning your blankets, your food, your car, your whatever. And if I decide I'm just going to do that, who's going to deal with that person? Are we going to leave everything up to themselves? And then they always start describing what we as a society have created. And what they're describing is, yes, police, and then it becomes the state. Because then it's like, well, okay, so then we need a group of people, like a militia, whose job it is. And it's like, oh, so you're kind of sounding like you're talking about police. No, but the state wouldn't be the ones doing that. It's like, well, who decides who the militia is? And it's like, well, the collective society.
We're going to have a governing body.
Right.
And you have a government, bro.
That's literally, you have no way of getting around it. That's why, like, well, we don't need licenses from the government in order to buy a home, or a license to get married. It's like, okay, so then how do you determine who gets to get that house? Or how do you determine I want to build a house here? Why can't I just build a house anywhere? Why, and then it's like, well, you can't build a house there because it wouldn't be beneficial for the community. Who determines that? Well, you need like a licensing board. You need, it's like, oh, a licensing board starting to sound like a piece of a state, because that's what the state does. You know what I mean? And no matter what you do, hey, I want to drive a car. Why can't a 3-year-old drive a car? Well, because we need a law that says, because we know that it would be dangerous, so we need a law that says that. Who enforces the law? Well, who is the body responsible for that? You're talking about a state. No matter what, everything that we talk about, all the problems that will happen in that type of society, you're going to need some type of state, right? Some type of governing body. You might not want to use the word state, but that's what it's going to end up being. Like, in order to make these things work, the only reason why society functions is because of the state. And it bothers me. It reeks of like immaturity, mental immaturity, when people are willing to dismiss the value. It almost says you don't appreciate the greatness that society is. We should be barbaric and crazy because human beings are disgusting. But some sort of way we've came to form a functioning society, right? So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I understand everything that you're saying. I completely agree, which is why I've always said that, like, even though I understand what Marxists are coming from, with the whole stateless man society thing, I've always said, I don't think that's going to work, man. The only way that's going to work is if we have replicators like in Star Trek, bro. Like, that's the only way it's going to work. And we haven't invented that yet. We haven't invented stuff. Replicators are basically just a magic box. We're never going to have that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We may have starships in the future, but we're never going to have replicators. Like, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? So it's like, until we figure out this magic box, we're always going to need some sort of state. And even like a lot of people describe Star Trek, right, as a post-scarcity society, as a communist society and everything like that, or a socialist society. I'm like, Yeah, I realize the Federation is a state.
Right? There's no way around it, man. It's so crazy.
The Federation is a state,
A
bro.
billion,
So
a billion percent.
yeah, that. But for that, I know you gotta go ahead and take care of your family and everything like that. I'm going ahead and get out of here. Once I start doing these, I think I'm gonna do it just like how we doing it right now on Discord, because TikTok might get banned soon. So I might create a Discord as well. It's probably gonna be called Talk to Me or Nuance and Black, and we're gonna do the same thing. Invite people into the Discord, and when we have a panel discussion, do the same thing that you just did. Open up a panel and we go ahead and live stream. I typically want to get 8 people. You know what I'm saying? Especially if we do like gender wars content, I want to get like at least 4 men, 4 women, or 3 men, 3 women. When we do black politics,
the harder it is. Man.
Harder it is to control. Yeah. So I'll probably do like.
Yeah. But you do what you do. It works. People have been doing it forever. Okay. Whatever works for you. I want genuine conversation, and I want like there to be interaction, and that gets really difficult with 8 people because people become really, really antsy to talk, and they interrupt all day, and they start yelling over one another, and it devolves into to garbage.
Yeah, that's why like when I'm on TikTok, I typically don't do panels. I do kind of more one-on-one, or I invite 2 people at a time, because every time I've done a panel, it's become chaotic. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm just gonna do one-on-one. So like I think with this, that's probably what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do probably like 2 and 2 or 3 and 3. Max will probably be 3 opposing sides, or 2 opposing sides, because I feel exactly what you're saying. 4 gets very, very chaotic. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Every single time. The moment you add, I don't know, it's like 4 is the magic toxic number. Once you have 4 people,
100%.
Once you have 4 versus 4v4, it's toxic. Yeah.
Yeah. So my friend told me something too. This is just a little anecdote. Anytime you have 4 people in a room, they can have a conversation. 4 people can have a singular conversation, and that conversation be that one thing. Just notice this: the next time you're in any kind of social setting, the second the conversation exceeds 4 and becomes 5. You will see a splinter in the conversation, and 2 people will talk and 3 people will talk.
Yeah.
Every time. 100% of the time I'm saying this happens. You can maintain a 5-person conversation for all of, I don't know, 5 minutes, maybe. And it's going to devolve into 3 and 2. So just dynamics shift dramatically when you start adding more and more.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll start thinking about that. Appreciate you though, man.
For sure. You too, bro. We'll be in touch. Right. Peace.
For sure.
Stream, I love you guys. This was good. I enjoyed it. And what I plan on doing is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start trying to plan for the Wednesday panel in advance. I'm also going to try to jump up to 6 people. I think 4 people will it might end up being 7 people. But either way, I think this panel was great. Or maybe no, I'll probably do 6 people, because my panel, I'm trying to avoid moderation. I don't think it needs it. Also, listen, a little bits and Iron Zodiac. I listen. I'm always open to conversations. Because you guys were talking quite a bit on YouTube. If you guys actually want to have a conversation, you could always join my Discord, which you can just come to the Twitch and just type !Discord. That's how you find that. I very much enjoyed this conversation. I hope I'll be able to upload it soon, but it was really, really good. I think, as I said, the podcast is canceled for tomorrow, unless maybe he might be able to figure some things out, but I think it's supposed to be canceled for tomorrow, so that won't be happening. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and probably switch to do some gaming stuff, so I'm going to end my stream on YouTube, and I'm going to just stream exclusively on Twitch. Anybody that wants to come over there, they can see that I'm going to be playing some Marvel. I'm trying to do some climbing and some more achievements, okay? Catch you guys later. Peace. That's for the YouTube folk. Twitch niggas, y'all know what it is.